How's everybody doing? Hopefully you can hear me. No? You can't hear me? I gotta go louder. Are we good? Okay. I see heads nodding now. Thank you very much for coming out. You can tell summer's getting ready to start. I think I saw heat index was 105 in Shawnee when I was leaving the house, and they're saying it could be 120 this weekend. So anyway, stay cool. With that, we don't have a youngin', so I will call the meeting to order, and we will call the roll.
Matthews.
Here.
Ingalls. Here. Flood.
Here.
Bolt.
Here.
Rutherford.
Here.
Seaborn.
Here.
Richter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. All righty, we will do invocation, and Travis is going to do that for us.
Pray with me. Father God, thank you for today. Thank you for another opportunity, God, just to be here and be about the business of the city of Shawnee. Please guide our hearts and our thoughts and our words, God, as we do our best to help continue this amazing city that we all live in and serve for. God, it's through your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. If you join me in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Item 1 is citizen participation. Same rules as always, 3 minutes per person, 12 minutes per topic. Our city attorney will be keeping time for us, so you come to the mic, address me. Please be respectful, and I would stick around till the end of the meeting, because very, very often a lot of these questions get answered during the course of the meeting. So please stick around so you can hear answers. So first that is signed up is Mr. Fred Turner. So Mr. Turner, the microphone is all yours. How are you doing this evening?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, on all the ships at sea. But, well, I wanted to talk about a couple of items on the agenda that's coming up. It's number 15, and it's discussion, consideration, and possible action to convey real estate to Shawnee Bridges out of property. And it says that the city has decided that this is surplus land, and I thought that all the land that was surplus for a city or Pot County or the state of Oklahoma had to be put up for auction, to be sold. You can't just give it away. So if, in light of, I went out and looked at the land, it's a pretty good place, not far from my house. You could put several houses on it. And so just so you think it may not be worth anything, but I'll give you $20,000 for it right now. So that's the first thing I have to say, because I don't think you can just give the land away. Now, if you want to sell it to these people, I think you should have an auction. The city has a lot of surplus property. You could get Louis Daykill down here and have an auction. He can do it in one day, and he'll get you the most money. So that's the first thing. Next thing is number 17. Hope I don't run out of time. This is about putting a brewery and tap room basically across the street from the public library. And people are hesitant to go down to the public library as it is. And I was around when Don Bodard gave the money to the library. I said, Don, that's kind of a funny place. They wanted you to put it. Why did they do that? He said, well, there were a lot of old bars and things down there on East Main. So that's why he went there. They put the money there. He put the money in there, and they cleaned out that area, so to speak. And so now it's about 40 years later, and it's back like it was. So anyway, the other thing is, I think that there isn't any rule against the councilman answering our questions as we ask them. I don't know of any law that says you can't do that. I mean, people up here ask you questions all the time, and they don't have time to stay here till 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock. I don't know of any law that says you can't answer their questions. I think you just don't want to. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you
Right
very
now.
much. Next up is Terry Compton. How are you, sir?
First of all, thanks for allowing me a few of your minutes, commissioners, mayor.
Absolutely.
My oratory skills are just horrible, so
That's okay.
bear with me. I have two main concerns. Both of them deal with infrastructure. The first one is the stoplights being out, and I understand you're addressing this in tonight's meeting. However, the ones on North Kickapoo have been out for over 2 months now, and I understand through the grapevine that it's a supply issue. I don't know whether that's true or not. If it is, that's still a bit too much. 2 months is a long time for anybody to have to wait on any kind of parts for anything. Our revenues and our business that we own on the corner of 45th and Kickapoo, Uncorked Wine and Spirits, my wife and I own that. Our revenues are down 30% because of the access to North Kickapoo Street. It's horrible. Nobody wants to wait in line for 20 minutes to go anywhere. So it's a big problem for us. Not only are our revenues down, but the city's revenues will be down too, because unless things have changed since I was in city government, sales tax revenue, you live or die by it. And so if our revenues are down, your revenues are down. And I'm not the only business on North Kickapoo, trust me. We are a small mom and pop shop. We don't have the deep pockets that some of these other businesses like, well, you know, the big chain stores that are out there. We don't have those pockets. So it hurts us a lot more than it does them. Second thing I want to address is what's up with the orange barrels on Broadway Street, and there's another one sitting in the middle of Bell and Georgia intersection. Those have been there for months. If we have an infrastructure issue with water or street or whatever it is, fix it. If we don't have enough employees, get some. Lastly, I'd like to address the center turn lane issue on North Kickapoo from MacArthur north to I-40. If we had a center turn lane, it would alleviate 99% of the traffic problems on that street and probably in this town. Because if somebody's going to turn left, it holds up traffic all the way back south to MacArthur or all the way north to I-40. And, you know, there's a lot of businesses that have gone into business on North Kickapoo, and cars can't get into them because of the traffic problem. So it has an impact on the community and on the businesses. The sidewalks, I understand Avitas paid for the sidewalks. I don't have a problem with that. That's their choice to spend their money the way that they want to spend it. And the only issue I have is that at one point in time, that money belonged to the citizens of Shawnee. And then through some legal finagling, it no longer does. So we can't really say anything about it.
Sir, your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much. Let's see. Next up is Tate Monroe. How are you, Tate?
Doing well, thank you. Good evening. I'm here to introduce our community to a positive movement in the city, something that is exciting to me, and we certainly love to celebrate. The Built Environments Committee, under the leadership of Potawatomi Go, is a group of Shawnee citizens who are invested in the quality of life of their families and neighbors. Through the pursuit of better parks, trails, sidewalks, and neighborhoods, the Built Environments Committee shares big dreams and ideas and works together to see those visions to fruition. We are excited to invite the community as well as you commissioners to a couple of days of festivities on June 23rd at the grand opening of the newly remodeled Kids Space Park. We hope that everyone will join us for a ribbon cutting, food trucks, competitions and demonstrations, and giveaways, and lots of fun. Built Environments also recently hosted a placemaking workshop that included leaders touring neighborhood spaces together, particularly affected by the tornado, and helped us think about how to provide responses to livable community-related challenges. Thank you for your time, and please look forward to celebrating further great things happening within the Built Environment Community Committee in the future.
Thank you, sir. All righty, next up is Shelley Bird. How are you this evening?
Pretty good. How are you, Mr. Mayor?
Doing well. You just bend that down where you need it.
Big as my mouth is, you'd think you'd hear me from town. Okay, just a couple questions, statements, I don't know. It was my understanding that financial disclosures are due by May 15th from all the commissioners. I requested those on May 26th. I received yours, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Daniels, Lauren Richter's, and Mr. Flood's. And there's a few people missing by my count. I was wondering why some are required to submit these documents so the public can be aware of any conflict of interest and remain transparent, and others do not. I feel like it gives the impression that they have something to hide. I don't know how anybody else feels. I also requested last week any communication records on the June 7th planning meeting. I haven't received any response yet, other than we got your request, we'll let you know. My next request is going to be, as soon as I can write it out so it makes sense, how much money is the city putting out every day or every month for 911 calls to the library? From the dispatcher to the patrol cars to the EMS guys. I know they're doing there almost daily and multiple times on the weekends, and I'm betting it's more than $60 a day that jail time would cost. We need to help the people who want help and discourage the ones who don't want help from squatting in Shawnee. I know, I always come back to that. I know we can't ban them from camping in their shiny new tents, but maybe we could enforce the rules on the hours when they aren't allowed in the park. Fine the fire out of the people that keep coming into the park to feed them, unless they have a permit and they deliver meals into the designated areas like the resource center for their meal deliveries. Also, the new brewery, do we know if the hours are going to be the same as the operating hours of the library? If it wasn't, it probably wouldn't be a conflict. And I'm sorry, I don't have time to stay and listen to the whole meeting because I've got Boy Scouts tonight. So that's all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And next up is Rick Young. There he is. I know I saw him walk in.
Good evening.
How are you tonight, Rick?
Good. Hope you guys enjoyed your day off yesterday for the federal holiday. Mr. Compton has great oratory skills, and he's a better running back than he is an orator. But I'll be back to Mighty Mighty football. Anyway, I'm here tonight because I thank you for the privilege to be able to appear before you and say what I need to say for my city and the things that are going on. And I think it is going well. We do have some challenges, and we're working on it. And I do appreciate the opportunity just to be able to share with you. For those people this evening, they need, they want, they deserve, and they desire praise, kudos, and congratulations. Now's the time to give yourself a big clap, and I want to clap for you also if you do need that. At the same time, my good friend is not here tonight, and that is Pastor Henry. And I want to say congratulations for him being a part of opening one of the longest snow-cone stands in, I believe, in the state of Oklahoma. And they had a little difficulty on yesterday when there was going to be grand opening, and the lights went out. This is Shawnee, America. It's like, and what? We're at an inflection point in our city, in our state, and in our nation, and basically across the world. There are things and challenges that we have before us. It seems like every time we meet, whether we meet twice a month, once a month, special meetings, or we meet at the coffee house, there are things that we have to address, and you hear it over and over and over again. And there are some solutions, and we might not have all of them, but I imagine there's somebody that are going through the same things that we are, that we could communicate with those people, and I desire that we reach out to them. I'm not really a numbers guy. I didn't teach math, But there are a lot of numbers that I've been looking at, and one of them is the city of Shawnee. When we go to the polls, I've been involved for 3 years working on Prop 1. And Prop 1 did pass with 1,262 votes. Now, last time I checked, I think there are 32,156 people that live in Shawnee alone. I think in Shawnee, Oklahoma, we have about 12,000 water bills, 16,000 registered voters. 1,264, and I thought the 1,474 that we did to pass $117 million water resources tax, half cent, was piss poor. And I apologize. But the 1,262 was even worse than that, and I just feel bad as an educator. We have to do a better job of educating people, but at the same time, they have to feel that their vote counts, that they're needed and that they're wanted. And I do believe that Prop 1 is going to exercise that and do that. I want to say congratulations to Lauren here. She's the newest person on the staff, but I believe she's one of the hardest workers that I know, that I'm in contact with all the time, that she's trying to learn and trying to understand some things about Shawnee America. Now, you have to be here about 50 years before it even kicks in what's going on. So at the same time, I do appreciate all your efforts because you are volunteers. You're not paid. And I do appreciate that because in order for you to step up and have somebody vote for you to set up here and take some of the things you have to take, I do appreciate that. So in closing, I would like to say this. Shawnee.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. That's fine.
Thank you.
You guys have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Bless you.
All righty. Item 2, consider approval of consent agenda. Anybody got anything they need to pull out of the consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion?
Move to approve item 2.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Daniel and Darren. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 2. We'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 3 is presentation of the pet of the month, and I see a little dog out there. Come to visit. And he looks like a friendly little dog.
He's very friendly. So this is Shadow. He's a 5 to 6 year old blue heeler. This is twice that he's been with us now. The owners just are not coming to get him, so we're going to put him into our adoption program. He's very friendly. He gets along with other dogs. He'll be neutered and current on a rabies shot before he goes home. We've had an influx of dogs, but we've had just as many going out with adoptions.
That's
so
good.
We're keeping everything open and free, and as soon as they come in, we get them out. So it's going good.
That's good. So what would it cost to adopt him?
$5.
$5. What are we doing back there?
Get into the back scratch.
Stretching our back.
So anytime between 12 and 4, Monday through Friday, is when he's available for adoption.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
coming to visit.
Have a good evening.
You too. All righty, item 4 is public hearing for City of Shawnee 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2024 through 2028. And looks like Lindsay is up. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. At the last commission meeting, I presented the 5-year capital improvement plan that covers fiscal years 24 through 28. Part of the CIP policy that was adopted by the commission in December, a public hearing is to be held prior to the approval by the commission to provide the residents an opportunity for input on the plan prior to the approval. So the CIP plan was made available on our city website and at City Hall.
Very good. questions while we got her? Or if not, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak about the, in favor of the plan?
I'll speak.
Come on up.
I have some questions, which I know. I just never have understood how our capital budget goes from, in 2023, it's like 15 million capital budget. And then it jumps by $11 million to almost $29 million. And we still can't get something here to make this better to speak on, but, so I guess, and it comes from the American Rescue Plan money, I guess. So how much American Rescue Plan money do we have? And why, and what are we gonna spend the 11 million on? I mean, I know it's in your plan, but that's a heck of an increase of the capital budget. Am I reading that right? Then to go from 15 million to like up, increases 11 million? Is that correct? Can't you just answer? Yeah?
It's not
Sir,
discussion.
you need to address,
Well, I'm sorry,
Me.
but she's one, what do you know?
do I know?
Uh-huh.
And, I mean, I know that we have said that we were gonna be spending our ARPA money on water lines and wastewater lines.
Right, but how much is in the ARP money right now? In there that we have from the federal government? Does anybody know that?
No, I mean, I think we got about $8.2 million, if I remember right.
So how are we gonna spend
City
11?
manager's free to correct me, but-
We only have 8.2 million?
And we said that we would be spending that on water lines and on wastewater lines, and we've talked about that at a number of our meetings.
Well, I can understand that, but don't we get more money than that from the federal government?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
Well, so how do we increase our capital budget by $11 million?
I think some of that's loan money for the
Right.
water treatment
Water
plant
treatment
and
plant.
Okay,
wastewater treatment plant.
so the 8.2 million can only be used for water treatment or water
No, that-
lines?
That was a decision that was a decision that we made as
So you
a
could,
city
but you
government.
can change that decision.
Well, that's,
Maybe you can. I remember I talked about the budget last time, and you said, well, yes, this is a budget, it's a plan, but we can still change it anytime we want to.
right.
And is that not correct?
There's probably aspects of that probably could be, but I'm sure we have committed money to those projects.
Well, I don't know, it just doesn't, I don't know, there's something I don't understand about how the
And we'll
cash
try to
flow
clear that
comes
up.
in.
If I may interject, there are certain
Absolutely.
funds that can only be used for certain purposes. And the ARPA money that we received comes with a lot of federal guidelines for
Right.
very specific purposes. And the city has dialed in on water and sewer infrastructure because that was specifically called out as one of the eligible activities for the ARPA money. The city received ARPA money as direct allocations from the Treasury, and then we also received ARPA money through the state's allocation, again for water and sewer infrastructure. And the significant fluctuations from one capital improvement budget one year to the next, it depends on what projects we have, what grants we were awarded, what loan proceeds we have received. That is why there is such great fluctuation in the amount of capital projects and capital project funding. So again, certain funds can only be used for certain purposes, and the ARPA funding, both the city's direct allocation and the city's allocation through the state, have been set aside for nothing but water and sewer improvements.
Right. Which we are in
And so,
desperate
but
need.
how much money do we have in there? In the ARP money, I mean, actual money? From both the state and the federal?
We received a total of just under 20 million, of which several million were already spent on projects this year. And I'm looking for the page in the CIP book, and Lindsay may have already found it. No,
So that means we have 13 million left, which is more than 8.
Well, I know one of the increments we got, I think, was 8.2.
Well, I'm
So
just
it
going
comes
by
in-
what you told me. I don't know.
No, I understand.
Page 113.
Okay.
That's quite an extensive budget.
So in fiscal year 2024, which is the upcoming fiscal year, we have a remaining $13,185,000 for water and sewer projects within the city.
And but water and sewer is a pretty broad area. You could fix that hole in Broadway. That's what, in the street. I mean, I would think that's the water line caused the hole.
Prior to the compilation of what projects this ARPA money would be applied to was the 2014 study of the water and sewer system, the master plan, then also the experience that the city gained through the February 2021 locations that popped up the weakest points within our water distribution system. Those are the projects to which the ARPA funds are being applied.
Right. Which is, but you know, the ARPA, American, what is it, Rescue Plan, it didn't come about till after COVID. So, and you can change the budget, some of the 13 million. Is that not right?
Again, some funds are restricted, and the CIP specifically calls out the projects to which this money will apply. And that is starting on page 115 in my document, and then continues onto page 116.
But it does say, can't you adjust some? It does, I mean, you have some flexibility in that budget.
The process,
It hasn't even been approved yet.
I would like to refer the City Commission back to the CIP policies that were adopted in December of 2022, which specifically lays out how projects are to be evaluated for inclusion in the CIP. And that is based on mandates, necessity, benefit cost ratios, and just plain where they are in the process of having to receive maintenance in order to continue. So there's a whole policy that guided the development of the CIP and the selection of the projects themselves.
No,
Well, I think there should be. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that, but I know that you can adjust it, so at least some of the money. And that, I think, should be admitted tonight, because there's some of the money can be adjusted. Like you have the things at the museum that need to be fixed, that were passed through some bond issues, and we'll fix the roof at the Santa Fe Depot. That hasn't been done. I mean, there's certain obligations that the city talked about and they're not doing. They told the public that they would do that, and they do have the money to do it.
well,
You just don't want to allocate it to that, but I think it can be adjusted, but that's up to y'all to adjust it.
Mr. Turner, I mean, we're not going to take money that was, you know, as the city manager said, you know, very clearly lined up by the federal government that we have to spend in a certain way, and then adjust it, you know, to something that we can't legally do
I
that,
don't-
and then have to reimburse the federal government.
Excuse me,
As far as-
I don't think I said that.
Well, I just want to make sure that we're understanding that correctly.
No, I don't think that's what I said.
But we can't move it from where it's not supposed to be, or not how it's supposed to be spent.
Yes,
And
but
as far as the other projects that you brought up, to reply to that, the money for, you specifically mentioned the depot, that money is still in the bank. That we don't have enough money to do that whole project, so we are trying to raise money to do that project.
Right.
And as soon
Yeah,
as we
like
will, it's going to be done.
Yeah,
And
well,
we have said that a number of times.
well, I guess that's true. I just why I couldn't figure out why you'd give away some land.
Well, that discussion will come up later this evening, but if you could confine your remarks to the
Well,
improvement plan.
Well, I just don't, I think that maybe you're being a little too cautious on how you can spend your money. I think you have more money than you're telling us you have.
Well, you know, one of the things to remember is that.
I mean, I already got it up 5 million, 8 million, now it's 13.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good job.
You know, what, so with the storm that we just had and the expenses that we don't know about just yet, we are going to have to be very careful with our money. And another thing that I know that this commission and our staff has done a very good job of is when they start a year, a fiscal year, they start things very conservatively and very carefully. And then if things are better than what we forecast, then that frees some money up to do some things, which we have done. But we always start the year very conservatively, and I think that's a very smart approach.
Well, I don't think I didn't say that.
No, I don't think you did, but
Earlier on, I think one of the first meetings I came to, I said, well, the sales tax could be up, but when you take into account the inflation, you really have less money.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I don't disagree with that. But,
Yep.
but anyway, I think you do have some flexibility. You haven't really approved the plan yet. So
And that's
now is
what
the
we're
time
discussing.
that's why we're having a public hearing.
Yes, sir.
And so you do have some flexibility, and I don't know, it looks like it's some way, I still don't understand how there's 13 million there. I don't know. It's a lot of money coming through, and so it's either 13 or 8, whatever it is. But I think that the plan, there's a lot of other things you could do in the plan besides with some of that money. So,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you speaking. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Anyone else? Okay, if not, we will close the public hearing. Any other discussion up here? All righty. We'll move on to item 5. Consideration of resolution approving and adopting the City of Shawnee 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2024 through 2028. And Lindsay, it's all yours again.
So this is the resolution that adopts the 5-year plan that we just had the public hearing for. I'd like to point out that even though this is a 5-year plan, the city must adopt a new 5-year plan every 2 years per the CIP policy. So we will be bringing back another plan as things change throughout the city and needs shift. We're actually planning on doing it again next year, just because since this is so new of a process, we want to make sure that we do this one more time annually, and then we'll move to the biannually. And also, anytime there's a change to the plan per the policy, it must be adopted and like a regular budget amendment that we've done for the budget. So
Right. So something you said, since this is a new process,
yes.
to your knowledge or anyone's knowledge sitting up here, has the City of Shawnee ever had a 5-year plan like this in the past?
Not that I'm aware
So,
of.
I mean, to me, that's a big step forward in how you would run a business. I mean, I think it's important that we have a long view like that. So I think this is a very significant step forward in how we run our business here. So,
Yes.
you know, I'm glad we are doing it that way. Any other questions for Lindsay while we does anyone have a motion?
Make a motion to approve item 5.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, so I will turn it over to our city attorney to read the title there.
These are,
Uh,
is this the entire?
Yeah, just that one line. You got off easy on that.
Yes. No legal description. A resolution approving and adopting the fiscal years 2024 through 2028 capital improvement plan.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 5. We will call the question. And I had it and it's gone. What in the world? 1 minute I had the thing to vote, and then I had a picture of a little mouse. And motion passes 7-0. Item 6 is annual review of public safety fee, and our city manager, Andrea, is up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Commissioners. Codified in both chapters 26, which deals with city utilities, and chapter 23, which deals with solid waste, our public safety fee is to be reviewed every year. You may remember last year that we had encountered some staffing issues within the fire department, and this public safety fee allowed the hiring of 3 additional firefighters to staff our force up. In light of the extraordinary demands on the proposed fiscal year 23-24 budget, due to the fact that emergency reserves and contingency funds had to be pulled into tornado recovery, staff is recommending that the public safety fee continue for the next fiscal year and will be reviewed again as part of the budget development process for 24-25. And there have been some questions in regard to how this could potentially be related to the tornado recovery expenses. What the city is currently doing in terms of debris removal will ultimately be reimbursable by FEMA, but the FEMA reimbursement is not immediate. So the city has to actually front all of the cost for the debris removal, and right now we're looking at a bill of upwards of $10 million. In addition to that, only 75% of that will actually be removed, reimbursed by FEMA, and there's still a local match requirement of 25% that will come out of city coffers. The state often contributes half of the 25%, so 12.5%, but there is also a delay in the reimbursement of that local match through state resources. So again, the city will have to front the debris removal cost, and that has placed an extraordinary demand on our 23-24 proposed budget, which is why staff recommends that we keep the public safety fee for an additional year.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
Sorry, I'll make a motion to approve the item.
Travis
Second.
and Darren. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 6. We'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 7, consideration of resolution adopting fiscal year 2023 to 2024 budget for the city of Shawnee, Oklahoma for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024. And Lindsay's back up.
Well, on April 17th, I presented the proposed 23-24 budget. A revised budget was presented on May 15th, and a public hearing was held. This evening, I'm asking the commission to adopt that budget. I did want to point out the handout that was in the packet, which was the public hearing notice. There are some changes on that to the beginning and ending fund balances for the general fund, the Shawnee Municipal Authority Fund, and the Street Improvement Fund. Those beginning and ending fund balances were made due to the budget amendment that was approved on June 9th. for a transfer of fund balance to the grant fund for our tornado recovery event contracts. But no other changes to expenses or revenues were made.
Okay. Any questions?
I have one on contingency
sir.
fund.
Yes.
Present in the current budget.
Yes. So the contingency is held within the general fund,
Right.
and other operating funds like the Shawnee Municipal Authority Fund has a contingency. So any fund that supports operations requires a contingency line item per our budgeting policies.
That's just something I'm passionate about, so I ask every time to get on the
Yes.
record because I think we've
Yeah,
seen.
so it's called out on that public
Yeah.
hearing notice as a single line, yes.
I think we've seen through the tornado and subsequent tax what'll happen, the importance of that contingency fund.
Absolutely.
Having that cushion in our budget, so thanks staff for working hard to make sure it was there, and just want to make sure that I'll ask that question every year as long as I'm up here, even though I see it. I just
Okay.
want to make sure I see. I don't know if they warned you about that question. I ask it every year. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? How about a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve item 7.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Daniel and Mark. All righty. And Bree's back up.
A resolution approving and adopting the fiscal year 2023 through 2024 budget for the city of Shawnee, Oklahoma for the period July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 7. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 8 is consideration of agreement with Community Renewal of Potawatomi County for fiscal year 2023 to 2024. Looks like Casey's up. How are you doing?
Good, how are y'all?
Doing great.
The City of Shawnee previously contracted with Community Renewal of Potawatomi County to provide various community events. Community Renewal has submitted a funding proposal to the City of Shawnee, which was reviewed by the Contract Review Committee for fiscal year 2022-2023. Community Renewal has requested $65,000, which equals the level of funding that had been approved for the current year. In line with city staff's guidance, the Contract Review Committee approved a recommendation to the City Commission to keep funding at $65,000 for the upcoming year. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Anybody got questions? If not, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve item 8.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 8. We'll call the question. And motion passes 5 in favor with 2 abstentions. Item 9 is consideration of agreement with Central Oklahoma Community Action Agency, Central Oklahoma Transit System for fiscal year 2023 to 2024. And Casey, the floor is yours again.
And the City of Shawnee has long partnered with the Central Oklahoma Community Action Agency and their transportation division, Central Oklahoma Transit System, to provide public transportation services for the City of Shawnee. COCA has submitted a funding proposal to the City of Shawnee, which was reviewed by the Contract Review Committee. For fiscal year 2023-2024, COCA has requested $90,000, which is a $10,000 increase compared to the $80,000 funding level that had been approved for the current year. In line with city staff's guidance, the Contract Review Committee approved a recommendation to the City Commission to keep funding steady at $80,000 for the upcoming fiscal year.
Any questions? So the recommendation is 80,000 like it was last year.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Does anybody got any questions on that one? Does anybody have any motion on item 9?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, ma'am. At the, just to be clear, when he, are you recommending it, staff recommendation? Or
To approve
to
staff's
approve that, okay,
recommendation.
okay. Just want to make sure we're clear. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second to approve item 9 at the $80,000 staff recommendation. We'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 10 is consideration of agreement with Shawnee Forward for fiscal year 2023 to 2024. And Andrea is up.
For several years now, the city has contracted with Shawnee Forward to oversee economic development activities designed to attract, promote, and expand businesses in Shawnee. A significant departure from previous years is the establishment of specific activities and deliverables in the contract, including a 5 to 10-year economic development plan and various marketing materials, as well as the monitoring and tracking of economic prosperity data for the community. Since the agenda was mailed to the City Commission, City staff was approached by Shawnee Forward to amend Section 8 on page 2 of the contract to include a 60-day written notice for termination of the contract that would affect lines 2 and line 4 of Section 8. This change had not been reviewed by the Contract Review Committee. However, staff suggests that this change be accepted as requested by Shawnee Forward. Again, it would only affect Section 8 and increase the current 30-day notice to a 60-day notice for termination of the contract. I also wanted you to know that representation from Shawnee Forward Board is in the audience, and they are available for questions as well. I'd also be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Everybody good? No questions. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve item 10 with paragraph 8, lines 2 and 4 amended from 30 to 60 days.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Daniel and Mark. All righty, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 10 with those modifications. We will call the question. Motion carries 6 in favor and 1 abstention. Item 11, consideration of a resolution decommissioning the Contract Review Committee for the City of Shawnee. And Andrea, the floor is yours again.
Since May of 1993, the Contract Review Committee has assisted the City Commission with the review of various community service contracts that enabled the city to contract for the provision of governmental services by non-profit providers. Formal guidelines for the Contract Review Committee were subsequently adopted in March of 2018. And even though the Contract Review Committee has discharged its duties faithfully and effectively, the number of community service contracts has decreased over the number of years and now stands at 3. At that number and level, these contracts can easily be reviewed and vetted by staff and then brought to the City Commission for their consideration. Staff and this Contract Review Committee both recommend the decommissioning of the Community Review Committee via this resolution that was included in your agenda package.
Any questions? I can tell you, because Darren and I serve on that, this recommendation actually came from the citizen participation in the group. This has changed quite a bit just in the 5 years that I've been involved in it, so I think it'd be a good move. Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
Sir, I'll like to make a recommendation to approve the item.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second, so I'll turn it to you.
A resolution decommissioning the contract review committee for the city of Shawnee.
Thank you, ma'am. Joe's gonna be upset because he always gets the long ones and you got short ones
I know,
tonight.
just lucky.
So, yeah. Alrighty, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 11. We will call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 12, consideration of an amendment to a grant agreement between the City of Shawnee and the Shawnee Civic and Cultural Development Authority and the Avitas Foundation. And it's your turn again.
Yes, it is. In February of 2017, a tri-party grant agreement was executed involving the Shawnee Civic and Cultural Development Authority, the City of Shawnee, and the Avitas Foundation. The purpose of that grant agreement was to be able to utilize Avitas Foundation funding for the renovation of the conference center at the Heart of Oklahoma Expo. That money has since been expended and utilized for that very purpose. In exchange for the grant funding, the Avitas Foundation, via this agreement, had received 10 years of rent-free usage of the expo facility for up to 4 events a year. As you know, COVID shut that facility for indoor use, and so the Avitas Foundation lost 2 of those years. The Avitas Foundation has approached city staff and SCCDA staff to be able to extend this grant agreement to include those 2 years that were lost due to the epidemic, and staff recommends that the agreement be extended for those 2 years to allow the Avitas Foundation to have the full use as previously agreed to.
Right. Any questions? No, seems pretty straightforward. Seems like a fair thing. Has anyone got a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Darren and Mark. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 12. We'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 13, consideration of a task order in accordance with the agreement between the City of Shawnee and Del Sol Consulting for consulting services related to the April 19, 2023 storm event. Mr. Weiss, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As you guys know, at the June 9th special call meeting, we approved a contract with Del Sol Consulting to provide consulting services for disaster recovery. The intent of that contract is kind of on demand for services, but requires a task order to bring them here. So this task order is to get them to get started working on all that. They will provide a variety of consulting services, namely related to the FEMA reimbursement as been discussed tonight, insurance claims related to storm event, program and project management for state and federally funded projects, construction management, and other consulting services for administrative tasks. And so this task order is to get them started on all of that, and staff recommends approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions about it.
Thank you, sir. Anybody got questions?
They are also here if you have questions for them.
Very good. Any questions for If
straightforward.
not, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
So, Mark and Travis. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 13. We'll call the question.
I'll vote yes. I've done that several times.
Okay, motion passes 7-0. Item 14, declaration that an emergency exists pursuant to 61 OS 130 and authorization for an emergency installation of traffic signals, signal equipment on Kickapoo Avenue at the following intersections: Kickapoo and Interstate Parkway, Kickapoo and 45th, Kickapoo and Federal, Kickapoo Spur and Kennedy, related to the April 19, 2023 storm event. Mr. Schmidt, how are you, sir?
Good. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Brad Schmidt, Public Works Director. The item before you is a request to install temporary span wire at the signals that the Mayor just mentioned due to the tornado damage. As referenced in the memo, the lead times for replacement parts are 6 to 8 months. And there's been a significant increase in traffic incidents since the 19th tornado, and traffic will continue to increase as the summer months go along. We also have a large event that will bring, excuse me, that will bring a lot of traffic in here in a couple weeks. So. The low bidder, Signal Tech, has all material available and is ready to begin installation immediately upon approval. Staff recommends approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sir, do we have any idea how long, if we approve this, I mean, do we have any idea how long they'll be?
Roughly 3 weeks, but they are looking at bringing additional staff from their Tulsa location to quicken that.
Okay, well, I knew that was the first thing someone's going to ask me, so.
Yes.
You know, I want to.
And it is unrelated, sir, but could you please state again the reasoning for the delay in repairing those for the public to hear?
So the delay, the first several days after the tornado, we were focusing on clearing intersections. Mm-hmm. Then we had to receive an all clear from OG&E and ONG to make sure it was safe. And then we were able to begin assessment of each signal. There was over 20 some signals affected, which is almost half of our entire signal inventory. Once the assessment was made, we got a parts list. We started looking into parts, and that's when we found that the lead time, best case 6 months, more likely 8 months. If you've driven that area, you know that what we have in place now is not working very well. This is a solution, a temporary solution until we can make the permanent repairs. These will be just like traffic signals. It'll be very similar to the signal that we have at Benedict and Kickapoo, where it's suspended, it's not on a pole. It will be timed. So you'll have a rotation that the intersection will go through.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir, that did.
Is any of this eligible for FEMA reimbursement?
It's not clear yet. We're still, we've got to meet with our consulting firm
That's why we brought in our friends
to
from
determine
Delso
it.
to help us get it reimbursed.
Yes, sir.
And then can you clarify, probably two more, like, I think I was shocked when I learned what a intersection, what traffic lights cost. Like, so, I mean, replacing them is going to be a costly item as well.
It's close to or over $1 million an intersection. Yes,
Per
ma'am.
intersection, is that what you
Yes,
said?
ma'am.
Yeah.
Let's not have a tornado hit our intersections next time. And then one more, because I've gotten this a few times. Can you talk about, or just clarify so the public knows, in the item it talks about that emergency exists and like what that means and what for the city as far as flexibility and policy of how we can procure and approve this contract versus it's not like staff or commission woke up Tuesday and went, oh my God, we got to replace traffic signals, but the flexibility in procurement that declaring an emergency gives us?
Yes, so similar to previous, some recent previous items, we had a stormwater issue and then a sanitary sewer issue that causes or presents a increased likelihood of injury, property damage. The traffic accidents have increased 26% at those locations since April 19th. So my personal opinion that would that would constitute
Absolutely.
an emergency to get some sort of temporary system in to hopefully reduce the accidents.
Some people have thought it was the city being delayed or being slow about it that they haven't looked at trying to get parts. I mean, try to get a roof air conditioner for a commercial building. You're looking at 6 months to a year just to get an air conditioner. Because of the components involved in these things, they're just very difficult to get, and it's not the city's fault that you can't buy it.
No, we can yell, scream, beg, plead. It doesn't change lead times. We have other projects we're over a year out on parts. So although 6 to 8 months is a significant time, we have experienced longer delays.
And at $1 million an intersection, it's not real feasible to keep several intersections worth down at the.
So we've used all spare parts.
I mean, I was saying that in jest, because like people say, why don't we have extras
but no,
laying around, because they're $1 million an intersection.
Correct. And then storage space for the mast arms. But we have used, this list would be a lot more significant if we did not have inventory at our public works yard. So we were able to get several back up and operational.
And it looks like every intersection that's not working right now has like completely lost one of those arms with the lights. And then also notice that some of those control boxes have just been picked up and tossed, and all that wiring is just a mess. So I mean, this is a big job.
And just to be clear for the public too, we will be able to do the emergency repairs to make sure that everything's safe while simultaneously also working on that permanent solution.
Yes, we are, staff is currently working on the permanent solution.
Any other questions? And I know, a gentleman made comment earlier that on the business up north, I mean, this should help our business community because, I mean, four-way stops at those intersections really does slow things down, and, I mean, it's hard on everybody.
This will, for all intents purposes, place signals, traffic signals at those locations. They just will not be on a pole, and they won't be on the loop system. They will be on a time system.
Right.
So in early morning, late night, you may sit there a little bit longer than you normally would because it is on a time.
And you might even be there a little longer than what a four-way stop would be right now. But busy time of the day, this ought to get people through there quicker, and it should be a whole lot safer.
A lot safer, more orderly, less confusion.
So.
Less confusion.
Yeah.
Four-way stops.
Yeah.
Yeah, four-way stops in general, you throw those on 5 lanes and it gets fun quick.
Yeah.
Being we're replacing so many of these, are there going to be synchronization with them, or is that not going to be compatible?
We will go back with what our standard is to where we can. Are you talking about the permanent solution?
Traffic flow,
Yes.
So they will be synchronized to where they're timed.
Yes.
The temporary will be?
The temporary
was that your question,
The
Mark?
ones we're putting up.
Okay.
Is that your question?
Sorry, the temporary will be timed.
Okay, but when we replace, they'll be synchronized.
Yes,
So the flow pattern will be better.
Very
Yes,
good.
sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we're
'Cause I'm sure
standardizing
a lot
all.
of the old ones weren't that way.
Right.
No, we're working on software that we need to get all that in place, but these will be compatible with what we have standardized.
Infrastructure you got.
Yeah. So when we get the permanent ones, then hopefully,
It'll be synchronized.
yeah, synchronized and all that'll
Yes,
flow a
that
lot
is
better than it was.
That is a goal of staff is to synchronize
Okay,
those
very
and have
good.
them all
Thank you for clearing that up. Any other questions?
I'm hoping these get up before the rodeo next month.
Yeah.
We hope so.
It sounds likely possible. It's hard.
We'll at
for
least be
me in that
very
area.
close.
Do what?
We'll at least be very close with
Okay.
installation if approved.
Good. It's
Yep.
it's been, I've actively gone to 177 to go around
Yes, ma'am.
everywhere else, but it's kind of impossible when I work east and have to go right through it.
Yeah.
And it's been a struggle.
Any other questions? How about a motion?
Sir, I'll make a motion, we approve the item.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Boy, that was competition there. I think it was Darren, though. All righty, we have a motion and a second to approve item 14. We'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 15, discussion, consideration, and possible action to convey real estate owned by the city of Shawnee by entering into signing and acknowledging a certain proposed warranty deed between the city of Shawnee as grantor and Shawnee Bridges out of Poverty, Oklahoma as grantee, specifically regarding the following property: attractive land and improvements within the city of Shawnee, Pottawatomie County, Oklahoma, described as follows: 3703 through 3721 North Beard, and 3801 through 3809 North Beard. Vista Heights Block 1, lots 1 through 24, Block 2, lots 1 through 33, and Block 3, lots 1 through 33, and containing 9 acres more or less, and authorizing the city manager to sign, execute, and enter into said deed on behalf of the city. Mr. Harkins, how are you, sir?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Ryan Harkins, Community Development Director, with apologies to the city attorney for the long title they get to read in a few minutes. Having said that, this is an item that the city was approached to consider and discuss regarding property transfer for a nonprofit in our community looking to do what is considered a transitional housing project. Transitional housing can take on a number of forms and look in many different ways. In this case, the organization Shawnee Bridges Out of Poverty is looking at smaller single-family detached dwelling units, varying in size, but likely under, for example, 1,500 square feet. So they would be much smaller, much more manageable single-family detached dwelling units. They're looking at they were looking at originally an acreage requirement of 4 acres or more. There are very few properties the city owns of that size. This is one of them. The property was originally thought of to be a park a number of years ago. It's currently zoned R1, so it is zoned for single-family detached. If you were to plat it out in a traditional platting pattern right now, you would get 30 to 40 single-family dwelling units. That could be altered through a planned unit development process. That's something that they would have to take the next step and do as part of their due diligence in the development. This item is essentially to transfer the property via deed. Normal transfer of property for local government is through an auction and surplus process. However, there are, under statutes, the ability for local government to do it under very specific circumstances like this at little or no cost, with very specific purposes in mind. In this case, because there is such a housing shortage, particularly for transitional housing, this gives us the opportunity to take that step and use that ability, hence the transfer. The other reason for bringing the item to you now is that they have a grant opportunity that they are trying to take advantage of, which means the property would need to be transferred to them by the end of June. This action allows them to do that. Staff is very comfortable after our due diligence internally with the idea of this project. We feel it does help the organization and the community take steps forward. There are staff from Shawnee Bridges Out of Poverty here to answer direct questions if you have them, but staff's recommendation to you is to authorize the transfer and the signing of the deed. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
I have one, it might be for Lindsay, or maybe I have two. On the memo that we have, it says financial impact, none. Is the land on our books as an asset?
Mr. Turner, please, you're out of order.
Comments from the public. If there's further comments, that person will have to be removed.
So, go ahead, Ryan.
So, we're not aware, when we looked through things, if this was listed as a city asset. We wrote that there was no financial impact because.
As far as outlay. Yeah.
Right, there's
No,
no
I get
outlay
that.
or any additional funds that we would incur as far as the transfer goes.
Sure.
And this isn't our first time that we've done this. I can think of at least 3 similar projects.
In discussion with the city attorney, this has been done before, so
Right.
the deed is written in a very similar format, similar to what we've done in the past, but it's been a number of years. And the city attorney wasn't sure if any of the current commission was at the dais at the time, even.
As I'm thinking of like the Mike Little project. And
That would be the last
one
example,
for,
yeah.
South Central.
Correct.
We
So
have those.
in each of these cases, they're tied to a very particular set of circumstances, and they're tied to a very particular set of purposes. In this case, again, like Mike Little's project or SEI's, providing housing and other development opportunity.
Right, which those projects have both been very successful.
Correct.
If they didn't follow through and do what they're promising to do, then we always have the ability to take the property back, is my understanding.
Yes, that is the way the deed is written. There are clawback provisions.
Right.
So they can't sell the property. If they don't do the project, it reverts back to us and gives us the ability to look at other things.
Right, and I think we have a park just a few blocks south of this property, so it's not like we really have a.
Optimist.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, Optimist Park.
Park.
Yeah, they got hit very badly by a tornado, sadly, but there is a park right there close by.
There is
so
a park
The
to
need for a
service this
park
area.
is probably not a high priority at the moment there.
Correct.
So. Any other questions?
Just one, Ms.
Dan, you
Gordon.
got one?
There was comments earlier about the legality of this. Mr. Harkins has told us there are circumstances that allow this to happen and make it legal. The city's attorney's office reviewed that and find that this meets those qualifications.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Turner, you are not allowed to ask a question at the moment. Mr. Turner, you're out of order. Mr. Turner,
So Bridges Out of Poverty, they're building small houses on all these lots?
That,
I mean,
their
to
intention
back up.
is for use the property for that
That's already
purpose, yes.
platted and everything to be residential, R1.
It is zoned R1 now, it is platted. They could look at using the current platting pattern, or they could come in and do a replat or do a PUD.
So they may come and vacate the plat and redo
Correct.
what they want to do.
Correct.
Are the houses gonna be, kind of like mobile homes in a sense where they're not on foundation, or are they gonna be, like if one day, Shawnee Bridges decides they don't wanna use the property for its purposes and we receive the ownership back of the land, anything that's on top, is that fixed to the land by foundation, these houses, or is it?
My understanding is they're not
something
looking at what would be considered mobile or tiny homes. They are looking at permanent
Okay.
structures on permanent foundations, stick-built type structures. So it would be something that would be very similar to what you would see in other residential
So
neighborhoods.
they'll look, because I looked up some pictures of what that could look like, and
Yeah, there would
it'll look
be-
like it's supposed to be there, or like it fits in.
There would be a lot of architectural compatibility.
Okay. Aesthetically, too.
Aesthetically, architecturally, the idea is to try and minimize the impact and footprint as another way to help minimize the impact on people using the service, living there as they work toward taking positive steps forward.
Their plat will have to go through planning, everything just as normal.
That is correct.
Okay. So this isn't our last time to comment on the plat.
No, the only item regarding this project right now is the deed transfer.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, giving it away, kind of, I don't know. Because it has a value.
If I may add to this discussion, because that was also an
Yes, ma'am.
internal discussion.
Mm-hmm.
It is for the very specific purpose of creating affordable community housing, and only affordable community housing. Should Shawnee Bridges Out of Poverty not continue with that particular plan and put in place the affordable community housing as agreed to and as permanently attached to their property, the property interest will revert back to the city. So, not public housing. Let me take that word back. Affordable housing, housing that is affordable for members of the community, is scarce within Shawnee, and has just made considerably worse by the fact that the tornado affected 2,000 structures within Potawatomi County. So this is a legitimate public need to which the city would contribute. All of the program administration, the funding accumulation, lies within the hands of Shawnee Bridges Out of Poverty. The only thing the city would add to that is indeed the property, but it would be multiplied by the investment that Shawnee Bridges Out of Poverty is foreseen for that particular acreage. And housing is very scarce in Shawnee.
Which we didn't really have in a packet as far as the look at surrounding, what's around it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I know the address, but, you know, the neighborhoods that adjoin all that, I guess my take with what are the neighborhoods around that thing? Did anybody talk to people around it?
That would be part of the subsequent planning commission proceedings, and then it would also have to come back to the city commission.
So that opportunity is still ahead of us.
Correct.
So this,
Ultimately, it would be for residential uses, not commercial use. It would just look and feel slightly different because it would be multiple small efficiency homes on this acreage for the purpose of the transitional housing program.
so whatever housing comes, it's gonna have to go in front of the planning commission if they change the layout of what's already platted.
Planned unit development, all of that will have to come before the planning commission and then subsequently to the city commission.
Any other questions? Make sure everybody gets them answered.
Will we be conducting a yearly review or periodic review with Bridges Out of Poverty to just touch base on their compliance with the program as we do the other, I know this is not a lease, but as we do the other lease?
I can answer that.
yearly?
Yes, Shawnee Bridges Out of Poverty is currently one of the members of our homeless roundtable. And as this continuum of care will be formed, they will be one of the members as well. So we'll have a chance to have that ongoing contact and review.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
So did anybody put a value on that? Did y'all internally, I mean, I'm sure there's water and sewer on the front or back.
There is water and sewer nearby. The property was not appraised.
Any other questions?
But all cost of development will be incurred by the organization and not the city, including water, streets.
We talk about a callback provision. Is there a time frame on that?
Let me rephrase that. There is no limitation. So at any point in time, the use of the land changes, that reversion clause comes into effect.
Maybe this would be for Ms. Gordon or just someone that's smarter than me, which might be a lot of people. We talk about change in the use of the land. Its current intention is to be used for a grant thing, so the land needs to be by June 30th. Like, if the grant's not approved, is that a change in the use of the land?
It's my understanding that it's not tied directly to the grant, but rather to the utilization of the real estate. So.
Well, I don't want to cut the legs out from under if they don't get this one, but I'm just like, also like, what's that period look like if it's?
I'm gonna go a little deeper here. Is Bridges Out of Poverty a 501c to where they don't pay sales tax? So none of the development's gonna pay sales tax on concrete, building materials?
As a guy that runs a 501c3, we do pay sales tax in Oklahoma. It's one of the rare things. We don't pay property tax, but we are not.
So any kind of construction material would pay sales tax just like normal?
Pay tax on all of that.
Unless they're in, there's very few limited carve-outs for 501c3s in Oklahoma for sales tax. Different than churches. Churches don't have to, but that was something I found when I.
So do we know for a fact they do or don't? Because if they do a $50 million.
I do not know that for certain. I'd be glad to find out.
I can't imagine they're exempt, like, because they're not that much different than we are. Like, I don't want to tell you for certain, but it's such limited.
Notates here.
Do they have representation here?
They do.
They do.
They do. You want to come up?
How do you do? Tate Monroe, coordinator for the Bridges Beyond Housing Project. We are a 501c3. However, as we are not a religious organization, we would be paying sales tax on these things. Yes.
Construction stuff.
If we dig in a little bit, let's say, just throwing it out, it's $100,000 worth of land. We invest that up front. I mean, eventually we would get that in water. Like, if development goes in, sales tax, water bills, we'd get that and more back. It's just the long game.
We shouldn't directly impacting the homeless situation.
Yeah, I mean
that's what everyone's complaining about all the time, so this is a pathway to that.
Our participants certainly are those who, as has been stated previously in tonight's meeting, are looking to improve their lives and to move forward out of poverty. They will be going through the programming that we have, as well as financial skills and improving their position. One of the benefits of the location of the land is its proximity to resources such as employment, shopping, medical. So I do see where they are going to be a contributing factor in the sales of our community.
I think I see the benefit to this in a lot of different ways. And eventually I think we would get our value back from the land as we're holding it. It may be a long game. One of probably the last thing that I'd like addressed by city attorney, or I know we talk about callback for if the utilization of land changes. What if nothing's done with it? They still say, well, we'd like to do it, but we're 5 years deep and nothing's happened. Like, is that a negotiation, or can we add a provision that if it doesn't, like say, and I wish them all the best in the world because I believe in what they're doing, but the grant doesn't happen and they still want to do it, but we're 5 years down the road and they still have really good intentions, but no activities happening, is non-activity or non-use a legal reason for callback?
Yes, that's my understanding of the reading of the language. Now, I'm not sure on time limits. Is that it right
But if
there?
if non-use is a provision, then time limit wouldn't
Yes.
necessarily matter.
And so it's my understanding that it would fall under the purview of the commission to take action to.
And I would hope we would never have to
enforce.
do that. I mean,
Sure.
this in my mind could help alleviate several different concerns, and we want it to be successful.
Yep.
But we are being stewards of resources and.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I do believe that is where the continued communication as part of a Shawnee continuum of care for homelessness, of which that transitional housing piece is a very important step towards self-sustainability and self-reliance. That's where that, constant communication as part of the continuum of care really comes into play to ascertain that the land is indeed being used for that specific purpose, progress is made. And as you can imagine, it takes a lot of money. When staff visited with Pivot in Oklahoma City and Food and Shelter in Norman, where these small efficiency homes, their version of transitional housing have been put in place. Each one of these small efficiency homes was no less than $50,000, and that was a number of years ago. So this program will have to be implemented in phases, just simply because there's not that much funding available at one time. But again, the continued communication as part of the continuum of care for homelessness will ascertain that indeed the usage is as stipulated.
I just think that's my kind of two protections I would like for us is that it is utilized, not simply, and those two protections I think help me.
Which there's just a lot of unknown on what it's gonna be. I mean, just like maintenance and mowing and, everything that is at a,
But
we don't know.
That would fall under the same
So-
code as any other
Yeah, I mean, we just have to
Right.
cross
Yeah,
that
just-
bridge
Yep.
down the road.
Yeah, the questions, all good questions, definitely. And you brought up Pivot. I mean, they've kind of been very incremental in how they've done this. I know the first time that I saw their facility, I think they had 3 maybe, and now they're up to 35 or so, but I don't know that that's how many are being planned here. That's
There's
something that they'll get worked out as we go
Ton
through
of
it.
lots.
But, and those are nice. I mean, let me tell you, I know they do like kids that are aging out. That was a whole lot nicer than the dorm room I had when I was in college. So, I mean, they weren't shabby, and I know they've
we
been
need
good.
the housing.
They've been
There's
good
no
neighbors
doubt about
too.
that.
So, what other questions have we got? Any questions? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, I'm guessing it was for.
Yeah, to
Yes, sir.
approve.
Okay, just want to make sure. Didn't want to assume, and you second. So, Mark and Travis, we have a motion and a second. I don't see a long thing for you to read.
I don't-
So there's not, so lucky you. This is your night. So we will call the question. Joe is going to really be upset.
I gotta get logged back on, so hold on.
Yeah, I do too. We've been talking, but that's good. Have to set that timer longer on here. There we go.
Okay, I'm good.
And motion passes 7-0. Item 16 is a public hearing and review of a proposed text amendment to section 29-295 of the zoning code regarding traditional neighborhood TN infill standards. Mr. Harkins, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was scheduled to be on tonight's agenda, as well as the June Planning Commission meeting. This is a text amendment designed to alter the current pieces of this particular section of the zoning code. However, because Planning Commission did not have a quorum, they were not able to meet and review, let alone act on the item. With that said, staff's recommendation is to forego the public hearing and defer the item to the July 17th City Commission meeting.
Okay, so to follow that recommendation, we would need a motion to defer to the July meeting.
Correct.
Sir, I'll recommend that we defer to the July meeting, 17th.
I'll second.
Travis and Darren. Okay, we have a motion and a second to defer to our July meeting. We will call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 17 is a public hearing of a request for a conditional use permit, CUP, for a brewery tap room at the property located at 313 East Main Street. Case number CUP 01-23, applicant Vortex Alley Brewing LLC. Mr. Harkins, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commission members. So this is a CUP at the address noted. Similar to the previous item, the Planning Commission had not been able to meet due to lack of quorum for their June meeting, so this item couldn't be heard by them. Therefore, we would ask that this item be deferred to the July 17th, 2023 meeting for the City Commission.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone care to make a motion for?
Make a motion that we accept staff's recommendation on item 17.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. So Daniel and Darren. It's all right. We have a motion and a second to defer item 17 to the July meeting. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 18, discussion and consideration of rescheduling the remainder of 2023 regularly scheduled meetings for the Board of City Commissioners, the Board of Trustees, the Shawnee Airport Authority, and the Board of Trustees, the Shawnee Municipal Authority. And our city manager is up.
I am. Thank you. City Commission members have requested that staff look into a potentially earlier than 6 p.m. meeting time for the City Commission, the Shawnee Airport Authority, and the Shawnee Municipal Authority. Staff reviewed the top 20 cities within Oklahoma, and found that 70% meet no earlier than 5:30 and no later than 6:30 p.m., and 80% meet between 5 p.m. and 6:30. Two cities meet at 5 and 5:15. Oklahoma City meets in the morning at 8:30, but Oklahoma City's meetings, city council meetings, are notoriously long. In 2022, twice monthly meetings for the City Commission, SAA and SMA, were on average 2 hours and 11 minutes long, not counting special meetings. Accounting for a total of 4 hours and 22 minutes per month, with the exception of January, where we usually only have one meeting. January through May of 2023, the once-a-month meeting has resulted in an average meeting length of 3 hours, so total of 3 hours per month. In consideration of the various pros and cons, one of the pros of an earlier meeting time would be that an 8 to potentially 10 o'clock day could mean that both city staff and city commissioners have 14-hour days, working from 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 p.m. in the evening. There are two specific cons for an earlier meeting time that should be balanced. One of those is public participation for citizens who have 8 to 5 jobs would be difficult because they would not make it to any meeting times earlier than potentially 5:15. One other thing that the City Commission may want to consider in this decision and during the discussion is the potential impact on the pool of future City Commission candidates who may have this 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. work schedule. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions, comments? I know an earlier meeting would suit me just fine.
Well, I mean, I'd rather have that way, but on the other side of the coin, you're gonna limit commissioners that run for it just because if we, I mean, we don't want a bunch of old retired people. Ed, no.
Thanks, Mark.
But, yeah, it would be hard for a lot of people that would run for office. Now you have to contend with workload. And even for me, I mean, we're off on Monday, so it doesn't affect me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it definitely is a burden when it's free gratis anyway. And then public comments would be the other thing. People have a hard time getting here as it is, let alone if we met at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, I'd like it, but I think as a whole, it would be hard on a lot of people and would restrict who would run for office.
Yeah, it's not fun because I'm in that boat with city staff during the school year, waking up, going to work, and then I get about an hour and a half between leaving work, getting my kids home, getting daycare for them, childcare, just to be able to come to the meetings, and then spending I think you'd said 3.5 on average for the last 5 months?
3
hours?
3.
3 hours?
Even 3.
Even 3? Okay.
Even 3.
Let me scratch that
How
out.
do we do that?
3 hours. I mean, it's a long day. I'm in that boat with them, but it's the price that we pay. I hate to say it that way, but I can't think of another way to put it for
That's a good way to say it.
reducing from 2 to 1.
Well, even city staff, I mean, they're here late, they're here all day long. I mean, but it comes down, what's the correct thing to do?
I think one time a month, like we have been starting at 6 p.m. It's worth it to me to bear that burden of time once a month for the sake of keeping that time for the public commenters and for the fact that it is just once a month. I can, as much of a burden as it is and how difficult, I'm just, running from place to place on those days, hoping my babysitter gets to my house on time. I think it's worth it for the balance that it protects, in my opinion. People getting to be here, the potential for candidates down the line who are deterred simply because they can't make the meetings. That would be really hard for me to stomach for them in the future.
And this group's pretty unique to where we're everybody up here, probably you're the least flexible.
Mm-hmm.
We can make our own schedule pretty well,
yeah.
everybody here.
I mean, I can
But
come
it's not
anytime.
always gonna be that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic to both sides. My personal side would like earlier. I do think maybe it's a little bit of I don't know the right word, red herring. Like, this is only through January. So when we talk about future people and running for commission, like, there's not an election before January. So I think we would want to consider, because we could keep it at 6 now and next year decide we're having them at 2 in the morning. So, I mean, like, what I mean is, like, we talk about long-term effects. I mean, I think we see Bree a lot more than Joe if we moved at 2 in the morning because Joe's in Bree. But, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I want to honor that, and I think that's a valid consideration going forward. But, I mean, this isn't a permanent deal either way. If we moved it to whatever we moved it to in January or in December, we'd still have to approve the 2024 schedule. Is what, I mean, that's my.
We can change it again if it
Like, I
doesn't
respect
work.
that point of view, I just don't think it,
I
like,
think we usually set those about October-ish. Does that sound about right?
it just shouldn't be our criteria for, like, well, it's gonna prevent people in the future. Well, we could change the schedule again in the future. Like, my
feelings, it's a business meeting, and we're about the only board I can think of that meets at night. If you're going to, like our planning commission, that's during the day. That's some of the most important things that people need to attend, and if they're going to attend, if they have something in front of them, then they're going to attend.
Yeah.
So the important things that we see that people want to come speak about, then, you know, it's a meeting that you can take off work, or it's once a month. And for our staff to be here till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and us to be here at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I mean, the big cities do it during the day. That's just the way they do those, because it is a business meeting. And I've been thinking about this all evening, and I'm looking around the room at the people attending, and I don't know that there's very many. There's more people attending this that are on one board, numerous boards that meet during the day. Sometimes more than once a month. It's twice a month, but the people attending already make those sacrifices during the day for other things that this could be considered, you know, something like that. So it's a change for sure.
And I think to your point, like, because I'm on both sides of this. Like, public comment is needed and necessary. A lot of times in my tenure on the commission, a lot of the public comment is stuff that can be addressed through the portal or with staff. Like, it's not necessarily critical to the business side as you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's opinion, which we want, or if it's an issue that needs to be fixed, it can't be fixed really at the meeting.
Right.
There are other more efficient ways. So balancing that, like the needed public dialogue versus sometimes what occurs, like, it's a change. And so for years, our precedent has been, if you have something you need done, just come talk about it here. Where this should be policy and decisions and like,
and
so there's both sides of that.
Yeah, the people will still have the option to attend, and most of the people that we see, I think, will still have the option. I mean, they will still come and speak, and that's great. And it may be there's people in the evening that have children, have families that they just had rather be there, but during the day they have the opportunity to come speak. So we may see a balance. We may see more or less. You don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still available. So we're not doing away with any of that. It's just an option to go to daytime meetings like almost everyone else is, other than us.
And it doesn't change how people can get a hold of us.
No, we still have the same way of
I've talked to
contact.
half a dozen folks today about concerns, so they can call, they can email, they can text, they can do.
I think,
whatever they wanna
I
do.
do believe city commissions and city councils are very different from other boards of directors, because it's 80% who meet between 5 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. So unlike other boards of directors, most of city meetings, municipal meetings are in the evening, 80% of those.
Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Lawton are daytime.
Oklahoma City is certainly the earliest one. Lawton has a 2 o'clock, and
Mhm.
Tulsa is earlier too, yes.
Yeah.
So then all that's left is how it affects my ability to get here. Because moving this would put a strain on me already, trying to get to these meetings on time. And I'm almost a year in. So I know it can be changed at any point in time, back and forth, and I don't know who the specific commissioners are that had these concerns brought forth to the city staff, but I want to be able to do my job at this table, and I want to be able to make it on time to as many meetings as I can. And I'm spread thin to come at 6 p.m. Not that I would ever suggest starting it later, because I don't want to. But 6 p.m.'s, especially during basketball season with my husband being a coach, it's tough to get here. I mean, this is the summertime. I got here at 5:30 or 5:40, and I tend to get here around 5:40 anyways during the school year. And those are lucky for me. I'm at the mercy of the start time being 6 and babysitters making it on time, following through with their commitments to watch my kids. So making it an earlier start time, and then if it were to be during the day even, to take off work, teachers are only given 3 personal days a year. And we get 10 sick days, but those sick days in my household are reserved for my kids being sick, not even for me being sick. So if I were to, in theory, if we had a daytime meeting, I would exhaust my entire PTO for that year just to be able to do my elected duties and not provide myself to my family in sickness. So.
Which if you knew it was in the middle of the day, you probably wouldn't have ran for.
No.
You wouldn't have been.
No,
able to.
honestly, if I knew that I couldn't be here, I wouldn't have even put myself through the turmoil of campaigning to be elected, to do something that I couldn't faithfully and fully do. It would have deterred me. If I was, if I had a different career, it might be different, but.
I don't think it was a valid concern bringing it up. Whoever brought it up, I don't remember that. But for our limited staff, I thought about their time, keeping them here till 10 o'clock. It's difficult to be here and think clearly until 10 o'clock oftentimes. But I knew that when I signed up, when the meetings were. I work at night. I'm missing work right now, but also I knew that. So for me personally, it would be much better if these meetings were during the day. I don't think it would affect our attendance as much, considering there are a lot of people who don't attend because of nighttime obligations or wanting to be with their family. And tonight we heard from a couple of people saying, well, I can't stay till the end of the night. So whether that was a legitimate reason or not, I feel like with our current commission, especially considering Lauren and her schedule being more strict, it might be odd to change it at this time. Although I would prefer an earlier meeting for sure. I see both sides of it.
I just want to put out there, I see both sides too. Like you said, Cammie, it's hard to put thoughts together into the night. And there have been meetings where I just feel wildly unfocused. And I try extensively amounts of time trying to prepare in advance of it so that I'm as prepared as I can coming to these meetings after pulling a full day with high schoolers and then my toddlers, and I guess they're kids now, not toddlers, and then coming here and making decisions that affect an entire city. So I get that side of it. I just want to make sure that city staff knows that, I do understand that because I'm right there with you guys. So.
On the city staff's behalf, we all knew that that was a quasi-professional hazard when we signed on, because city commission and city council meetings are predominantly in the evening. Don't ask us any very difficult questions at 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning.
Well, and that's how we have these discussions, is you put,
without
you
doubt.
put it on the agenda and
Yeah,
you
and
see.
we talk it out.
I mean, there's nothing, in my mind, there's nothing nefarious in putting it on the agenda,
No,
you
'cause we
put it
can't get
on and
together
you
to talk
discuss
about it.
what's best and what works and
And doing it out in
Because
the
I think
open.
Yeah, I
90%
mean-
of us here would rather have it in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
at what
Right.
expense?
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't, in my position, it doesn't matter what time it is. We could,
And I
and I know
think
Susie'd rather do it at two in the morning.
future,
when's deadline?
your candidate pool in the future, I mean, I
Yeah.
can't speak for everyone, but
Yeah.
the commitment that involves, we do have other things during the day. I mean, we just do. I mean,
Right.
there's other things,
Sure.
you know, and I can't speak to your specifically, you know, about taking off an hour and a half early during the day, if that's possible, if you know every month you're gonna have to take off an hour and a half early. But we do have,
Yep.
we have training that's an all-day thing. We have other things that do schedule, special meetings, so those do take place already.
Right.
And if just, I see both sides.
Without doubt.
It's one of those things,
And,
so.
I mean, as years go by, the composition's gonna change up here, and the
It's going- I mean,
circumstances are gonna change up here, and, I mean, it's just gonna change.
Change is hard.
So-
I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know how everybody feels, but I'll make a motion to move the meetings till 2 PM in the afternoon.
Okay, we have a motion.
Isn't this just a discussion, though?
Discussion, possible action. Is that what
Is
this
it-
is?
If somebody
No, it's-
seconds, we'll vote on it. If somebody
Oh, wait.
doesn't, we won't.
So, hold on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is probably for the city attorney. There's a motion, so if we want to have any more discussion, well, we can't discuss it till there's a second.
You mean we can't vote until there's
No, we can't discuss until.
If there's more,
like,
yeah,
there's a
I think the
motion now,
question
so we
is,
can't
can there
discuss
be more
anymore.
discussion?
correct, unless the
Right.
motion's withdrawn. If
I guess
there
my
needs to
question
be-
was.
I'm not saying I'm not asking for the motion to be withdrawn. I'm just wanting to make sure.
Just clarifying.
And I'm not discussing, I'm asking, I believe I heard Commissioner Richter want to discuss, and we can't discuss and without a second, so I'm not, that's not
Right.
against you.
I
I'm
think
considering
I
making
maybe
a,
misspoke to it. I was under the impression that this agenda item was just for discussion and that action was or wasn't. In my mind, it was just discussion, no action. We discuss it, we think about it, and later on it becomes an agenda item that we vote on. Is it just my misunderstanding of the wording within the agenda item?
It does say it's for consideration as well.
Okay.
Did answer question? Good. Questions?
well, I think we're good, because I think Lauren essentially had a point of order.
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
so I'm
It was a clarifying question.
good, okay, I'm
Thank
good.
you. Wording
Okay.
is down.
All right.
I just want to make sure that if she had discussion, I facilitated that happening.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so just to get back where we're at, we have a motion to change to 2 PM. Do we have a second? Okay, hearing none, then it will fail for lack of a second. We will, but good discussion. So that's 18. So 19, consideration of an appeal of an administrative order regarding property located at 528 North Cleveland Avenue. And Kevin Moore is up. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. The residential structure at 528 Cleveland Avenue has now been brought to an administrative hearing 2 separate times. You might recall it was brought before you June of last year. Following the commission decision last year, a remodel permit was issued, and the permit expired in December of 22. With the permit expired and low progress made, the property was brought back to administrative hearing June 1st of this month. The structure and property is not being maintained. The owner failed to comply with the previous order and failed to make significant progress in the timeline of the remodel permit. It's staff recommendation to proceed with the demolition and remove all junk, trash, and debris. Also worth mentioning, there are several images of the structure in your packet for your review. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? I think everybody's looking through.
Ms.
So
Gordon, is it?
she's done nothing?
They removed the metal from the roof that was nailed down, so now it has penetrations in the
That's
roof.
even worse.
And then they removed the front porch that was covered, and it is not being supported, and there's still trash and debris in the back. the rear of the property.
If I remember right, wasn't the porch removed like a year ago?
It had windows in it. They had enclosed it and it had broken windows in it, and they removed the windows, and now it's just leaning. I don't know if it's been
'Cause
about
I
a year.
remember discussion about the porch.
Yeah.
Ms. Gordon, is there anything defective with the order?
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I understand the property owner is here,
Yes.
and I know she had signed up to speak at public comments, but we told her she could talk now if she'd like to. So, ma'am, if you'd like to come up, you're welcome to do that.
This man is very intimidating, him, this people.
Ma'am,
He's got on my papers here that the lack of structure and maintenance, that's no. He's got it marked yes. The weather and elements entering the roof of the structure, no. But he's talking about the roof now. Okay, the weather elements entering the windows or the walls. I took the walls, the windows, and covered them. Because all the years that I've lived there, people have always broke those windows, and they're very expensive. Acme Glass is where I was having replaced. The exterior, the siding, the wall degraded. It does have the porch. The porch is an issue, but it's not a bad issue. We braced it up in trying to consider whether we could leave it remaining on there, but someone that lives next door keeps knocking down the post. So I was thinking we would just go ahead and take it off and put some facial up there to cover it. But what I was wanting to do, since I'm not gonna have the money or the strength to do what this man wants me to do, which I have no idea what he wants me to do, because he doesn't explain himself. He just like, I would just like to turn it into a storage for myself, because I do have a home I can live in. And I'm trying to retire, and I want to do like a buy and sell type deal that a lot of people are doing now. And this would give me an opportunity to have a place to keep it, because I have 3 storage buildings now. And that I could use that money to turn the electric on, or I could use that for my storage.
When's the last time somebody's lived in this?
2 or 3 years ago.
Like
What
this-
pictures do you have?
Do what?
We have ones
I don't know if
from
there's-
this month.
Five
last
of
month.
23, month ago.
As
Yeah,
recent as
a
May.
month ago.
And we have some from April, and we saw the ones from before
Mm-hmm.
at the post.
There's not much change between.
Is this here what you're looking at?
I don't think we're gonna be able to see that
If
from
I may
there.
remind the city commission that this
Right.
appeal
Is,
is related to the process.
right,
And I know that Commissioner Matthews had just asked the question of the city attorney whether the process was followed,
right.
and
And she said that it was.
And it was.
And it
Yes.
was.
I don't understand what she said.
Okay, so what is going on right here is that the city commission and correct me if I'm wrong, evaluates if the city followed the process that's prescribed to deal with a situation such as this. The city attorney answered that yes, that it had. So you had signed up to speak at public comment. You wanted to speak on behalf of yourself here this evening, and we told you that you didn't have to do it at public comment, that you would be able to do it here. So if there's for some reason that you believe that it hasn't been followed, the process hasn't been followed, then that's probably what you should be addressing us about. But
Okay. I worked hard for that place. It's mine. I paid for it.
we all understand that. Yes,
And I
ma'am.
feel like the city of Shawnee is trying to steal it from me. Mr. Matthews helped me out, and Jody Ward helped me
remember.
out, and I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am, I remember that.
And it just, I can only do so much. I'm single and I work, but you know, we all have bills and stuff. But a few things have changed since I was here the last time. And that's why I wanted to see if you would consider letting me keep a strong structure. That house, it's not dilapidated. I can go, the house next door is more dilapidated than it.
Okay, but that has nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight.
I don't understand then what we're talking about.
If the city followed the process to condemn that property and have it taken down, the city attorney has answered that, yes, the city has. So that's the information that we have, unless there's other information that you can use to convince us that it has not. But the city attorney is telling us that the process has been followed as prescribed by law.
What process? Because he basically hasn't told me anything. Then he gives me this paper and half of that's not even mine.
Yes, ma'am. I know there's been hearings
The way
about
I
this
see it,
property.
He wants to tear it down. Well, I don't have the money to tear it down. If I had the money to tear it down, I'd have the money to fix it, I guess, like he wants it, because I have no idea what he wants.
Right, so that's not what we're discussing here. I mean, if it's gonna be torn down and you don't have the money to do it, then the city will have
Right,
to do
and then I
that.
lose my place and the city owns
Right.
my house.
Well, that's not exactly what happens.
Well,
but-
that's the way it was explained to me.
Is there any other information that you have for us that,
I don't know what information I'm supposed to have. You get just a few days to come up with, and yeah, I don't know what he wants. But when he sets you down at that table with them other people, he's very intimidating. You don't even get to say anything.
ma'am?
You're just sitting there like, well, what do I say? Do I say yes and I lose everything? I say no, I lose everything. It's just like it's all negative when it comes to when you're there. And there's no one there with you, you're by yourself. But what question, I'm trying to ask you, can I turn this around and just make me a storage out of it? And it's a strong structure, it's not leaking, I'm not
So-
living in it.
That's not part of it.
When this item came before the city commission,
Mm-hmm.
the city commission granted a very, very clearly delineated extension to pull a remodel permit to do the work. This is not about what the chief code official wants done. This is
No.
about the city codes that apply to every single property within the city. And every single property owner within the city has maintenance and upkeep requirements for their own personal property. And at this time, the property is not appropriately maintained, which is why it ended up in a nuisance hearing. The process was clearly followed. The property
disagree
owner
with
has
you.
now stated multiple times that she does not have funding to appropriately maintain the property and fix it.
And I think we discussed this, had to be, yeah, it was quite a while back.
As a storage, what do I have to have a storage building? The two I'm reading is a metal building with a concrete floor.
Yeah,
It would be
that's,
zone right for a storage facility
right.
anyway.
There's,
Yeah, it's not part of this discussion.
that's not what we're here to talk about. If that's something that you want to do, that should have been done like months and months ago. Not tonight.
I was working on the place. I mean, I can't do it like he wants it done like yesterday. I just can't do that.
Okay,
But the house, It's a strong structure. The building is. I had the plumbing all totally redone, the electric all totally redone. The roof was new, and then, yes, my ex decided to put, for heaven knows why, that tin roof on it. But it's not leaking. I'm not living there. What's the difference if I mean, I see houses that are, the windows are
But
covered
ma'am,
and
those
everything.
other houses have nothing to do with what we're talking here.
It does with me.
Well, I beg to differ. I mean, we're here to talk about your house and whether the city followed the process, and the city attorney tells us that they have.
No. I don't know who the city attorney is. I don't know who any of y'all are. I know this is one man that's decent to me.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy here is supposed to represent me, and he don't even try to help.
Ma'am, please direct your comments to me and not at any of the commissioners.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, this is not
We're not-
something I do. I'm not trained to come up here and not speak and not ask questions.
We understand that.
I work. I
We
do what I'm
understand that.
told. But sometimes it's impossible to do things that you're told to do, and it's unreal. You know, it's just like I've been told, that's your property. You don't have enough money to fix it like somebody else wants it. So therefore, it's a done deal. It belongs to someone else now.
Okay, ma'am, it's not his personal feelings, it's city code. That's all it is.
How do I get out of city code when half the damn town's not in it?
But ma'am, it has nothing to do with your
It
case.
does have to do with me. I'm just like everybody else.
Mhm.
It does have to do with me. When I look around and I see things, my house is way better than a lot of places I see, and they've been sitting like that for years. It does have something to do with me.
And probably someday that they're gonna be in here in the same situation then.
They should have been in it a long time ago, because my house just became this way over the last few years, and I think half of it is because the city of Shawnee flooded my house all the time, and ever since they flooded the house all the time with that water tower and we went to court, I've had trouble with the city.
Ma'am, the purpose
Ma'am.
of the hearing today is for you to present evidence or witnesses as to how the city failed to follow the proper administrative procedures.
That was
for
not
this.
why I called it.
It's stated in the
That's not
agenda
why I called it.
that was published, and so if you do not
I
have
didn't
any-
even know I was on there today. I tried to find out if I was
Ma'am,
on it, and they said
ma'am.
no.
Ma'am, if you don't have any further
If you
evidence
don't have
to
anything, then
present,
you'll need to wrap up your comments
Yes.
and take your seat.
Well, I hope y'all enjoy ripping me off.
Okay. Any other discussion up here? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we deny.
Is that the right word?
Yes, because I think it was an appeal, so
I couldn't hear what you said, I'm so sorry.
So I made
you
a
said
motion to
deny the appeal.
I'll
Yes,
second.
I think that'd be appropriate. Appropriate wording.
So we have a motion and a second to deny the appeal and mentioned in item 19 then. We'll call the question.
Yes, is it no? Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion passes 6 in favor and 1 abstention. Item 20, consider bids. We got demolition and clearing of 623 Kickapoo Spur, the Cinderella Hotel. And Mr. Moore is back up.
Mayor, Commissioners, at the bid opening last month, if you recall, we had 6 bids. Low bid was $294,220 by Midwest Reckon. High bid was $734,084. Since then, the staff has reviewed the bids. We are familiar with the low bidder. They are a sizable contractor. At this time, staff recommends awarding to Midwest Reckon. This would be for the base bid at $294,220. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I think this is something we
I guess
talked
that
about for a long
includes
time.
asbestos
Yes.
removal. It's in that.
The only thing that we will be leaving is the parking lot and the slab. We are gonna take the structure and cut the caps off and cap them on the sewer lines and water lines.
Okay, so it'll get knocked down and hauled off, and
Correct.
other than the slab, it's just gonna be a clean lot then.
Yeah.
And then we'll file a lien on the property, whoever owns it.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
We have a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Yes. All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 20. We will call the question.
Commissioner Seymour.
I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. Motion passes 7-0. All right, we will, yes, yes. That's another note I got here. So by popular demand, we will take a quick 5-minute break or 10 minutes.
Thank you.
How's that?
I was just assuming, and I looked at the rest of what we have, and they found the other two.
21, consideration of the following budget amendments for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. And let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So Lindsay, you are up again, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Okay. So my first budget amendment is to the general fund, and this is, I'll go through each little bullet here, but overall it's to fund the demolition of the Cinderella Hotel and other year-end operational needs. So the previous item that was approved was to award the contract for the demolition of the Cinderella Hotel. And this amendment authorized the funds for that contract for code enforcement to have the funding available for that contract. And if you look on the budget amendment handout, there are various revenues that are going to support each one of these budgeted expenditure line items. The next item that is on for the general fund is to replenish the city manager contingency. After the storm event, we had several property damage, and in order to make those repairs and for the departments to have the needed budget, we did do transfers from the city manager contingency so that we would have budget authority for that. Also, previously on the agenda, we approved the emergency contract or bid for the repairs to the traffic. So that is $187,500 for the streets, and then $99,000 was used out of the contingency. So these two items are being funded. We did receive insurance recovery funds as part of our insurance for lost revenue, and also other revenues exceeding budget estimates. The last section on the agenda for the general fund is some just various operational needs. As I was going through the budget, just some various items that need additional authority for the remainder of the fiscal year. The first bullet is for contracted salaries for temporary employees in animal welfare, streets, and parks. Later in the agenda, there will be a need for the aquatic center fund, so there needs to be a transfer from the general fund for $10,600. The election cost for the 2013 or the June 13th city charter election is $7,500. $6,200 in repairs and maintenance at the Expo Center. $5,000 in capital outlay for repairs to a tornado siren that was damaged in an auto accident, and $90,000 in a transfer to the street and alley fund, which will be another amendment for the cost of electricity for traffic signals. And with that, I'll answer any questions. And this is just for the general fund that we're talking about right now. The revenue sources vary just depending on where we were exceeding our initial budget estimates. For sales tax, use tax, our OG&E franchise, ONG franchise, insurance recovery, and transfers from the police sales tax fund and the transfer from the fire sales tax fund.
Anybody got questions? I think this is pretty normal to the end of the year. We're
End of
always
year, yes. Just
doing
trying
this sort
to
of thing.
shore everything up.
Yep.
So the total for the general fund is $960,020.
Anybody got questions? If not, how about a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the item.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
And Darren. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 21. We'll call the question.
Just to clarify, this is just for 21A.
21A.
Yes.
Well, then,
Well,
we do vote on these all individually. do we?
Okay,
The city attorney and I just had a sidebar discussion.
Good.
And everything could be done with one motion.
Okay, then we will
Okay,
wait.
so then I'll go through all of them and
Let's-
then we'll
Let's
vote.
wait.
Okay.
I mean, but did we have?
I withdraw my
motion,
motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. You read my mind. So who had the second? It
I
was
did.
Darren, so you withdraw that then?
Yes.
So, all righty.
Okay,
Let's
I'll keep
move
going
on.
then.
Push on.
Okay, so the second fund on the budget amendment is for the Aquatic Center Fund. This is to fund urine operation needs at the Shawnee Splash. It's $8,600 in the chemicals and $2,000 in food and kitchen supplies. And this additional appropriation is funded by a transfer from the general fund.
Could I make a request that we clear the computer screen so we can get back into the items? It's stuck on.
Yeah, we
on
got
the
the
vote.
He called the question and it pulled them all up, but it hasn't
Yep.
gone back away.
Were you able to remove that?
I thought I had.
Maybe to go back.
If we hit the save.
No, if you go,
Also vote though.
if you go back.
Wants to vote and then
It just
just delete
keeps
it.
asking. Okay, sorry.
No. If you click save without clicking
It
the
won't let
button,
you.
it won't?
It
I
won't.
just tried.
Okay.
Can we just back arrow?
More cookies.
Nope.
Nope. Come right back to
They
it.
can listen.
Yes, yes.
And if nothing else, we can do a voice vote when it gets time.
So we're not able to navigate outside of the vote while it's up, but we also can't save without voting to clear that box.
If we just leave that on there when we get to our motion and second, would it-
Okay,
Yes.
there we go.
Thank you.
what did it do?
We reset the vote, not delete the vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
So how did I?
Learned something new today. Okay.
Mr. Mayor should not reset.
No, mine did not. Let's see if I can do this. Now I gotta get back in. An error occurred while processing your request. Well, let's not hold up for me. You can always ask. I mean, no, you're welcome to come up. Sorry, that page is unavailable.
Let's try logging back in. Okay. It's completed. Try to go back in.
Sorry about that.
Okay, I'm gonna try to reset it and we'll see.
Okay.
Okay. Are you okay? Okay. The next fund is the Street and Alley Fund, and so this fund allows for the expenditure of electricity for traffic signals throughout the city. The account line item for electricity has exceeded the budget authority for the remainder of the fiscal year, and this fund needs $90,000 in electricity, and that additional appropriation will be funded by a transfer from the general fund. The next fund is the E911 fund. This fund supplements the general fund in supporting dispatch services. The budget needs additional authority in contracted salaries for temporary employees for the remainder of the fiscal year. The amount is $15,000 in contracted salaries. And this is funded by E911 tax that are exceeding budget estimates. And the total is $15,000. The next fund on the budget amendment is for the police sales tax fund. So this fund is funded by a dedicated sales tax in support of the police department. The city uses these funds as a transfer to the general fund where the operational expenses for this department exist. This amendment authorizes an additional transfer due to revenues exceeding budget estimates. So for the police sales tax fund was $53,418, and that is a transfer to the general fund. And then the last budget amendment is for the fire sales tax fund, and it's the exact same. There is a dedicated sales tax for the fire department, and that's used as a transfer to the general fund, and it is also $53,418. So with that, I'll happy to answer any questions.
There we go. Questions?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we approve item 21A through F.
I'll second.
Okay,
Too slow, Derek.
really. So Daniel and Mark. Okay, we have motion and a second to approve item 21. So we will call the question. I think it shows I'm not even in the meeting. Let's try this again. It isn't, that is really weird, because it showed I was out. Now it's back, okay. So you got it. Motion passes 7-0. I can't explain what I just saw, but it worked.
I'll back you up.
Okay. Item 22 is acknowledge monthly sales tax report.
All right, so the sales tax report for June, the total collected was $2,268,766, which includes $2,238 in interest. The receipts in June are from estimated May sales and final sales numbers in April. April was the first month that our newly adopted half-cent sales tax is in effect, which changed our city rate from 3.5% to 4%. With that said, the month of June is the first month that we're recording a half-cent to our new 2023 capital improvement fund. If you look at the graph in comparing total collections, you can see that June of this year is only $54,000 more than June of last year. With the rate increasing from 3.5% to 4%, and the collections not reflecting the increase, we can see that the tornado has had an effect on our sales tax collections. We will continue to monitor the collections and do an in-depth analysis once we get some additional information from the Oklahoma Tax Commission. The use tax was similar, which was actually a 2% decrease from June of last year. Year-to-date collections, we are 9.9% above the same time last year, and we're 7.3% above budget projections for the year. The general fund is currently 1.9 million above budget projections when you combine sales and use tax, and we've appropriated approximately 1.6 plus the 250,000 that we just appropriated in the previous amendment, which leaves a balance of unappropriated of $30,000. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody got questions? No, I think next month's report is going to be interesting.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Yeah.
to me, no more than we're down for the amount of days that businesses were closed. I figured it'd be more than that, because it's about 10%. So, not near as bad as I presumed it would be.
Yeah.
You still are closed.
Yeah.
But you figure we had a week that we basically didn't have electricity.
Yeah.
So we'll just continue to monitor and make adjustments as needed to operations, but we'll be hopeful.
All righty. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, item 23, administrative reports. Goals, first one is goals for 2023-2028 strategic plan. And it's your turn again.
Yes, it is. And I know that our strategic visioning retreat on April 17 seems like a lifetime ago. But at that time, we had discussed that we would bring the goals for the 2023-2028 City of Shawnee Strategic Plan back to the City Commission. So I'm delighted to have this opportunity, even though it feels like it's been ages ago. As you may remember, on April 17, we spent the entire day here in the City Commission chamber, city commissioners, mayor, department heads, and select division managers for the city. And of course, as part of that visioning retreat, we had a look at the community survey that was rolled out to Shawnee households in February and in March of this year. We had just received the summary report from our community survey consultant that consisted of the major high-level findings, and we rolled those into the visioning retreat so the City Commission would have that knowledge of what the citizens thought of the city, where they thought specific needs existed, so we could take those into account as we were working towards the development of the strategic plan. As you may remember, this community survey allowed us to have direct and quantifiable citizen feedback on the various different questions that were posed to them. And not to bore you with slides that you had already seen at the last commission meeting, I just bring 2 slides back to refresh everyone's memory. Here, this particular slide included the 16 most important city initiatives and activities, all of which were ranked relative to one another by the citizens. And as you can see, homelessness, water system, roadway, traffic flow, sewer and water were truly the highest ranking items. This was another compilation where satisfaction and importance were combined, so we could see just what truly bubbles to the top in terms of needed attention. And there it is again, city streets and sidewalks, traffic flow and congestion, water and sewer services, and enforcement of local codes and ordinances, and then some additional information for each one of those areas. You may also remember that we had a summary slide with the high-level findings, and you will see this slide multiple times throughout this presentation as we're stepping through each one of the 6 selected goals for the strategic plan, and we're tying those back to the major findings. Just because some of this is relatively small and for the audience it may be tough to read, those items that were highlighted by the citizens in the community survey are the fact that the city needs to focus on homelessness, on streets and sidewalks, on traffic congestion, on the city's water and sewer system, code enforcement, crime prevention, parks, as well as walking and biking opportunities, downtown revitalization, and of course the preparation of the city for long-term growth. Following the review of these high-level community survey findings, the City Commission worked during the strategic planning retreat to collaboratively develop 10 goals for the strategic plan. As the City Commission then voted on which one of these were most important, 6 were selected to be carried forward into the strategic plan. That's where all of those little dots come in. And you have asked that city staff take your proposed action steps and really ask the questions of, what does this goal entail? Do we have the technical feasibility to make this happen? Do we have the finances to make this happen? Do we have personnel and equipment to make these things happen? Is this the right sequencing? Are those the right milestones? And then, of course, are there any fatal flaws that would potentially put obstacles in our way for the implementation of these goals? So let's step through each one of the goals separately. The first one, having received the highest level of recognition, was, of course, improved quality of life, as the City Commission sees this as the driving force behind creating a welcoming, attractive, and desirable community in which citizens and other folks choose to live and work. Proposed action steps identified in this area here in absolutely no particular order are to work with the Parks and Recreation and Beautification Committee to find ways to expand recreation programs and recreation opportunities, and to also fund the remainder of the Parks Master Plan that was put together. Right now, we have only invested in 2 of our major parks, but there are several additional parks that were identified for improvement. Identifying and revitalizing depressed areas of Shawnee. We know that there are certain neighborhoods that can use a hand up, and listing those, identifying those, and then continuing with Love Your Block-like efforts as we have done throughout the past 2 years. That was highlighted as one of those items. Improving community appearance, and that was a big item that surfaced on multiple occasions. Increasing collaboration with partner entities and community groups and volunteers. Continuing the focus on public safety and growing our fire and police resources in line with community growth. Mitigating roadway issues and addressing traffic congestion. And then, of course, diversifying service offerings and retail opportunities. And as you see on this next slide, everything, all of the findings that could potentially be addressed by these suggested action steps under the quality of life goal are highlighted in this gold font, just to tie the goals back to what the citizens told us via the community survey. In regard to the second strategic plan goal related to operational growth, the city understands that staffing and resources are needed to provide service excellence, but to also make meaningful progress. And the City Commission elevated this strategic operational growth goal to a high level of importance. Suggested action steps may include review of peer city staffing, revenue and capital assets, strength and weaknesses assessment, opportunities and threats, so a true SWOT assessment, identifying city revenue restrictions and opportunities, engaging with the public on revenue generation, potential property tax related bond measures for capital improvements, for example, developing and implementing a personal staffing plan to retain, develop, and grow our staff. As you may have heard me say before, we are operating the city on truly a skeleton crew. And then, of course, market our achievements and capital improvements. So when something great happens, like a big community project, such as Kid Space Park, that we do take the time and celebrate that achievement. In regard to the high-level findings that came out of the community survey, again, this particular goal of strategic operational growth speaks to several of these findings that would be moved forward. As you can imagine, strategic growth can only happen if there is also robust economic development, and that leads to revenue generation, and all of which is, of course, focused on community prosperity. The city will develop an economic development plan in coordination with Shawnee Forward. And then, as you may remember from our earlier discussion of the contract with Shawnee Forward is tasked with implementing said economic development plan. Proposed action steps here include surveying the local market for needs, conducting site visits to those peer entities who have already done a phenomenal job, from whom we could learn, developing, again, that 5 to 10 year plan with measurable benchmarks, development of an incentive fund and incentive process for both business retention and expansion, because at this time the only incentives the city has extended are sales tax reimbursement for public investments into infrastructure, for investments into public infrastructure. Pursuing site certification, we hear that from site selectors quite often, that the sites within Shawnee are not certified. There's certainly a process, but it does take some funding and some legwork to get that done. And then, of course, creating workforce development coalition and a small business and retail coalitions to really move our market forward in the right direction. Included in that should be regular economic development updates to the City Commission and, of course, the public, and emphasizing the shop local. And as we just heard from our sales tax numbers were definitely impacted by the tornado. But as the town recovers, as the community recovers, we hope that those levels go back to normal as quickly as possible. On a side note, for the City Commission's note, the removal of dilapidated buildings and the reuse of vacant structures was also mentioned as an economic development activity. The proposed action steps under the economic development, robust economic development, touches on increased investment capabilities, because when there are additional revenues, the city also has those revenues to reinvest into the community. And then, of course, revitalizing downtown and preparing for long-term growth. This evening we had several items that spoke to infrastructure. Modernizing infrastructure was, again, a need that was recognized by the City Commission. Roads, bridges, water, sewer, and facilities need upkeep and modernization. And the first step is, of course, the adoption of a comprehensive plan, which is exactly what the City Commission did this evening. Other proposed action steps under this particular strategic plan goal are the monitoring of the implementation and the regular report out on CIP projects, not just to keep the City Commission informed, but also to keep the public informed on all of the great things that are happening to the community's infrastructure. Finding long-term funding for CIP, considering citizen budget workshops, because it appears that there is still a certain lack of understanding of how municipal financing works and how projects were selected for the CIP. Elimination of deficient bridges, improvement of the condition of the roadways. I am certain that each one of you has received multiple reports on potholes and other things that need to be fixed, including the comments that we heard earlier this evening. Optimization of the flow and the safety on the arterials and thoroughfares. Again, one of our items this evening was addressing some of those safety concerns. Reducing water loss in in our existing water distribution system. Building out and managing stormwater runoff, which is a requirement that we will soon be saddled with as our community continues to grow. So we would like to get ahead of that. And then, of course, reducing the inflow and infiltration into our sewer collection system, because stormwater should never, ever be in our wastewater system, but it does currently enter into it at several different locations. Infrastructure modernization is at the heart of several of the community survey findings that were highlighted by our citizens. Another goal that was highlighted by the City Commission was the intentional growth of the city. Smart planning is deemed important here. The goal includes potential action steps that range from researching successful peer cities that have grown, inventorying developable land, because at this point in time there is no clear overview of what is already within our city limits that could potentially be developed both for residential as well as commercial use. Creating a potential request for proposals for an expansion study, and then working to get a strategic expansion plan to not just accommodate the growth but also encourage it. Conducting legal research on the required city and utility service planning, that is part of the Oklahoma state law. And then, of course, implementing the phased growth as the city requires it. This speaks to one of the findings, which is to prepare the city for long-term growth. And then last but certainly not least is the improvement of our housing situation. So developing improved housing opportunities. You may remember that citizens asked the city to address homelessness. That was one of the high-level findings of the community survey. A major contributor to the homelessness issue is the lack of housing that is affordable for our citizens. An issue that existed even before the tornado, but was just recently much exacerbated by the loss of many structures because of the tornado. Shawnee simply needs more housing, and we need all kinds of housing. And I know that the conveyance of the 9 acres this evening to Shawnee Bridges Out of Poverty was one of those steps to ameliorate that particular situation. Proposed action steps under this goal are implementing lien clearance program. We would like to start with a pilot project this coming year to forgive some of these liens and reintroduce them into the development cycle. Thereafter, identifying neighborhoods for revitalization, similar to what had been done with the Dunbar Heights neighborhood community, to start those conversations, to do some facade improvements. Modernizing city code for infill and multifamily, make it easier for our developers to implement those. Supporting mixed income housing developments and downtown housing and redevelopments. And then, of course, actively looking at rezoning for homeless solutions, not just for the transitional housing, but also for emergency shelters. And here that would address 2 of the major findings, which of course are aimed at reducing homelessness and revitalizing downtown. Having these solid goals that are well grounded in the findings of the community survey, we are now looking at mission statement and core values to guide that development of the actual strategic plan document. And here, this is a staff draft that speaks to providing high quality service to support and build a vibrant community together with our citizens. Core values, I know that we had a slightly different set of core values for our current strategic plan. These again were developed in-house by staff. They are not written in stone, and I would like to also mention that these goals, the proposed action steps, the draft mission statement, and the core values will be taken out for public engagement. That is the next step in the process before we finalize and draft the strategic plan to bring it back to the City Commission. I understand that this was a lot of information to take in a very short amount of time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on the goals or the proposed action steps for each one of those 6 goals.
Questions? Are you sure that was just 2 months ago?
I know, it feels like a lifetime ago. So many things have
Yeah,
happened in the meantime.
If you told me that was 3 or 4 years ago, I'd believe it.
Yeah.
Over the last couple months as well. Anybody got any other questions? I don't see any. I think we're good. That was a very good presentation, and thank you for reminding us of what we did just a couple months ago, which seems forever ago, but that's a good update.
It was a great, great effort by the City Commission, and I'm really glad that we had the department heads and division managers in the room to kind of guide those action steps. I thought that was a great collaboration.
Yeah, that was a great opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have a second one with the election results for 2023 proposed city charter amendments. Danny, you got this one, it looks like.
I do. Good evening again, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm going to be much shorter because there's not as much to cover, and we've talked about this already this evening. And also, an interesting point of order about the last thing. That was my 5th day or 6th day of employment here, and I feel like I've worked here for 10 years. So, you know, it's all good. Anyway, this evening, real quick, as you guys know, on June 13th, we had an election for charter amendments. I'm just going to quickly go over that. I believe that we have the official results, and you guys have those in your hands. I will give you guys one bit of information, and that is that this presentation was built off of the unofficial results,
Right.
and there is a 1-vote difference between the unofficial results and the official results. So I'm going to read you guys the official number, but it is going to be different than what is on the screen. Okay, I'm not getting it wrong. They got it wrong the first time. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Proposition 1, as you guys know, was in relation to ward-specific voting, and as amended, will create ward-specific voting for commission positions, and it was approved by the citizens, 1,057 to 206. Proposition 2 was related to competitive bidding. It basically will amend the city charter to become in line with state requirements for competitive bidding. The section will read that the city of Shawnee shall abide by all Oklahoma statutes and regulations, so it couldn't be more clear. That proposition was approved, 1,061 to 197. Proposition 3 was related to the timing of the swear-in for commissioners. As you guys know, when we switched to one meeting a month, it made the timing very odd. So this will correct that. It was approved 1,030 to 227. Proposition 4 was related to the qualifications of employees. It will amend the charter to repeal some residency qualifications that makes the qualifications for city employees a little closer to state and federal requirements, also allows us to be much more open in competition for employees, because although I have heard it suggested that we could just get people, does not prove that easy. So, having all available options are helpful. That particular proposition was approved 939 to 806 to 439. I got ahead of myself. Proposition 5, that one is in regard to conflict of interest policies. I haven't been following along, I'm sorry. Someone's been doing it for me, thank you. The proposition is in regard to conflict of interest policies for the commissioners and city employees. The amendment was to just bring that in line with state requirements, again, instead of having conflicting or outdated language. That item was approved 939 to 313. Proposition 6 was related to the Shawnee Twin Lakes regulation. I can tell you, as someone who answered a lot of questions about this one was probably the one people had the most questions about, and the vote was the closest. So it will amend the charter to remove language from the charter based on requirements that exist elsewhere in the city code already. That was approved 680 to 564. In Proposition 7, this was related to the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund. This proposition will amend charter language that provides staff with more flexibility to spend money to take care of the cemetery, and will align the requirements with the Oklahoma statutory requirements. And it was approved 1,020 to 229. As I mentioned before, the election results were the official results were certified today, and you guys have a copy of that. Staff is putting stuff together to send to the governor's office for signature. And before you ask me when that's going to happen, I will preempt that by telling you that we don't have any idea. Internally, we're estimating maybe 6 or 8 months. We do know a local municipality recently had theirs signed by the governor's office, and it was a little over a year before theirs was signed. So we do not know how long that will take, but we are hopeful that it is faster than a year. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody got questions?
I have to go to Oklahoma City tomorrow. I can drop off the paperwork.
That'd be great. That would be so.
We had an acting governor today. Maybe that would speed it up.
Yeah, maybe so. I did see that in the news today.
I think that happens quite often, actually. Anytime the governor goes out of state, I think.
We're actually on the backup acting governor as the governor and the lieutenant governor out of state.
Were out of state.
Yeah.
So the Senate pro tem was the governor.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. No, I don't see any questions. Thank you very much for the update.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's see, that was both of those, so we are to item 24, which is new business.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner comments, I have totally forgotten which way we started, so we'll just pick on
I'll go
you.
first. I'll be quick. I want to thank all the citizens that voted on Tuesday. Obviously, one of the most important things we do as citizens, and their input and their research. And obviously, we'd like to love 100% turnout, but appreciate those that did vote. I thought you saw a lot of stuff tonight that was good for the future of our city. Capital improvement plan, which we've never had, which will directs the work of staff over the coming years. Also transparent about where that money's headed, the budget. I will beat this drum as long as I'm up here. The contingency plan or contingency fund works. It's responsible, and I continue to appreciate that staff prioritizes that. So I think from the budget to capital improvement, we're seeing systems created within our government and a municipality that will support growth in the coming years. So those things are exciting to me. Sales tax, I think it was relatively good considering what we were expecting. I think considering that we did have the new collection, that probably changes that perspective just a little bit, but still not as catastrophic as I think many residents and people feared. I think we'll get maybe a larger look next month, but overall, I think maybe it calms fears a little. We'll see. Just want to remind people that, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. We're still in the process of cleanup with the tornado, and take care of your neighbors. Let's be good neighbors. And I've seen people helping all throughout this week, so let's continue to look for those that we can serve. A big park opening Friday, huge thing for our community. I would love to see a lot of people come out. And another fun thing, we've talked about quality of life tonight, and our own Potawatomi Fire are playing for the championship, and it was fun to see more community members coming out to the last game, and I think that schedule will be released soon. But those are the kind of things that add so much energy to our community and bring us together. And so would love to see you out there, and we can all scream and cheer together. I know I'll see you.
I was selfishly very glad they won last night. So
Yes.
We didn't have a game tonight.
They didn't have a game tonight. None of us would have this. It was really great to see the presentation from our strategic planning meeting, because that does feel like a lifetime ago. And it's also very encouraging that I can draw a direct line from things that we know we need to be working on to things that are already implemented, and how those pieces are starting to come together with staff's hard work and the commission's dedication to those items. I'm really encouraged that we will be having that we approve the emergency funding for the Kickapoo lights, because I have been hearing from fellow business owners and people at Kickapoo that their numbers are down. It's understandable. So I would ask staff if we could, as those lights are being fixed temporarily, we can make a big push for Kickapoo's open, no delays, no four-way stops, so we can help those business owners even more and see some of those sales tax recuperations. One of those things that I think we moved forward today was at least the initial step to allow for Bridges Out of Poverty to be one of those community partners that we discussed, providing some, of course they have to go through the same process as we discussed, but providing some additional housing. I think we've, at least this commission has heard for quite some time that homelessness is a huge issue to our residents, and of course it is to us, and want to see movement forward. And we've also realized that it's going to take strategic partnerships with our nonprofits and some help from the private sector, because the city just cannot afford to, and quite frankly doesn't have the resources to do those things by ourselves. So I think this is a great step in the right direction to honor some of the citizens' requests from that survey and what we hear in the comments. I have one more thing. Well,
So with that, I'm excited about the new park opening. Look forward to that this weekend as well.
Yep. Thank you, ma'am.
One of the things that we've been, have been approached about a lot lately is the need for the stoplights and the things that we take so much for granted during our everyday day, as we travel back and forth, and I absolutely understand the frustration of trying to get in and out of businesses. Absolutely understand the frustration of a business owner watching a street completely full of people and none of them having the extra time to stop and the extra time to fight getting in and out of the parking lots and all the things, and 100% understand their frustration and understand their hurt, and I'm very, very thankful to our staff and for the willingness to go forward and just not wait on parts to arrive, but actually in doing their best to move forward and make just a stinky situation the best that we can make it, and hopes that we can put as much pressure on getting those parts in here as quickly as we can. So I'm super, super excited about that, hearing that. One of the things that often when we talk about strategic planning and things like that, and so many times it's done by a small group of people, very well intentioned people that build plans for an organization or an entity, but the fact that we had so much input from our citizens through those surveys really did help us to focus and to guide our thoughts and our ideas, and the fact that we here on the commission and the input that we had from the city staff and the input that we had from the survey really helped us all. We were all be on the same page, all have an aligned idea and aligned hearts for creating this pathway to success, and it is beyond tragic that 2 days later Mother Nature just tried to take us out, but it didn't completely negate all of the hard work, and I think that this happening 2 days before that probably made us stronger, because it gave us an opportunity to see really gave us the opportunity to see what we could become and what we're wanting to become, and that no devastation by tornado or man can actually stop a group of awesome, amazing folks that are trying to do awesome, amazing things in a city like Shawnee. And so super excited about looking forward to that. The conversation about whether or not we can make money off that piece of property that we were allowing Bridges Out of Poverty to use to alleviate some of our housing issues. Personally today, I took three phone calls from individuals who had a home, and either through a lease termination or through their house not being livable anymore because of damage, were at the end of this month going to be homeless. 3. Myself took those calls today, begging me for any place that I knew of where they could go, and I had no options for them. And so understanding the need for this type of affordable transitional housing is if you're not in the middle of it, you can't understand it. Yes, we probably could have made a little bit of money off of this piece of property, but I guarantee you what we will save and what we were gained by having housing for multiple families that are going to end up not being housed is far less than what we could have gained by selling the property. And I'll argue with that all day long. So that, gosh, as always, city staff, you're amazing. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for continuing to put us in the right position to succeed. And just continuing to work hard whenever some of the circumstances don't lend for us to be successful because of outside things. But you continue to show up and continue to do good work, and I just want to say thank you. We definitely missed Miss Andrea being gone for 2 weeks. I think we should make some kind of rule that says we have to have a break there where she can't be gone for so long. But I'm just teasing. But anyways, it was definitely the ship carried on, but it was definitely missed its captain. So anyways, thank you again, commissioners, for showing up and working hard and doing all the things. And I'm just really glad to be here. So
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vice Mayor?
I don't get too revved up very often, but
Yeah.
this right here is pretty darn exciting. I wish I could have, made that presentation, but, our parks,
I'll tell you.
that Kid Space Park, everyone came out and voted in 2018 and passed that. That was due to strategic planning that was done a couple of years before, and it's come to fruition. That is something that we have gotten done, and it's state of the art. One of the top ranked ones in Oklahoma is what it's going to be, and it's just great that we've got that done here, and it's exciting. And I'm excited we've got that accomplished, and we've got Woodland coming right behind it.
Yep.
So we've got good things. It's just the tornado kind of knocked us back a little bit, and I hope everybody's getting back going, and the more that can help all the local businesses, and let's get everybody back going, and then let's go celebrate our parks this summer and have a good time.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Didn't leave me much, did you? I felt like we got quite a bit done tonight with the budget taken care of. Staff can kind of start working toward day-to-day stuff now. Taking Cinderella down, that's a major step. The temporary signals, so a lot of good things. Sales tax, I look for it to rebound pretty quick. I know we've got a lot of money getting spent for damage, so we'll see probably actually an upturn for a while. And so 6 months down the road, we'll probably see more so what we have. So short term, it's going to be hard to gauge what's new, what's not. But I'm still shocked we're not off more than we were.
Thank you, sir.
I could try to put my own spin on everything that everybody else has said, but I'll save everybody that headache. So I don't have anything to add. I pretty well agree with what everybody said. And despite the tornado, it's the strategic planning reminder, getting these big, huge items taken care of, only puts like an upward, forward-thinking mentality in my head for us and our job. So I don't really have anything else, just because everyone pretty much covered it.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. And you guys did cover a lot. I appreciate everyone that did get out to vote. Sales tax, that's going to be an interesting thing. And Mark, I think you're going to be right on the money, pardon the pun. But, in talking to the other communities that we've talked to, that's kind of what they experienced. I mean, it had a little dip initially, and then it went way up. And then, we'll see how that goes. I imagine that'll get back to kind of like normal again. But both of the communities that went and met with that have sustained significant damage from tornadoes. I mean, they told us they had that little dip, and then it did go up quite a bit. So I would expect that's probably what we're going to see, and then eventually we're going to kind of settle out to what our new normal is. So it's going to take a number of months, I think, like you said. So I think you're right, spot on. Kid Space Park, you got to go. You got to go see it. That is just an absolutely amazing place. And when you get in there, you're almost going to not believe, what you're looking at. So I hope lots and lots and lots of people come out Friday and Saturday, and then, keep going there. We need to make that busy and everybody enjoy it. And there is absolutely something there for anybody of any age. There's all kinds of cool stuff there to do. So please get out and enjoy that. We spent a lot of money on it, and it's well spent, and I think gonna be a big investment in our future, and I know there's a lot of people really excited about going to see that. One Facebook post I made on just photographs of that thing, last I saw was about 150,000 people that looked at it. So word's getting out, and hopefully they'll turn out this weekend, and I hope that place is just wall-to-wall people when we get that. There were a lot of, what's that?
I said, I hope there's not that many.
Well, I know, but especially as warm as it's gonna be. There were a lot of really good Juneteenth events over the weekend. You know, as that holiday was celebrated. CPN had an amazing event, and there was another really good one just, you know, the next night. And there was supposed to be one kind of Monday with the snow cone thing, but they had a little power, as Rick said earlier, and I think there was like a tree limb or something that had come down and kind of took. So it was just bad timing there, but I know they've got that back up and running, and they're anxious to get everybody down there and get them a snow cone. I drove by there on the way to the fire game last night, and they had gotten it back open, and I wish I'd have been able to stop with my camera, because there's like a little railing down there that's probably like about knee high on all of us, if that high even. And there was 6 or 7 little bitty kids, I mean, just knee high to grasshopper, sitting out there on that railing eating a snow cone. And man, I'd have done anything to be able to stop and snap a picture of that, because that was a winner, let me tell you. But a lot of cool stuff happened. I'm also glad we had the discussion on the meeting times, okay? And the reason I'm really glad we had that discussion is that you guys get to see exactly how we get to discuss things. I mean, we don't get together and have secret meetings or anything like that. We do it right here. And what you saw is kind of how we all worked out through that. And so I'm glad people got to see that. I can't think of anything. One other thing, and I'm going to apologize right now. I need to take about a 2-minute break. And I guess you shouldn't let the old guy drink water or something. So I will be right back. And I won't keep you. say. And that is if you didn't go to the fire game, what night was it? Yesterday.
Last night.
Yeah. If you didn't go to that, you missed one of the most exciting things that I think I've ever seen in Shawnee.
Yeah.
They went from 19 points down to winning by, yeah, with 7 minutes left in the game, I think it was.
Yeah.
They were 19 points down and come back and won by 10. I mean, what a turnaround. That was an amazing thing to watch. So if you haven't been to one of their games, I would highly recommend it because it was a lot of fun and it's a cheap ticket. I mean, go down there and support those guys. They play their heart out for our area, that's for sure. All righty, so we adjourn and we will move on to the Airport Authority. And I'm gonna have to wake my computer up. There we go. Get out of that. One of these days, we're gonna get the hang of this. There we go. Everybody get in? All righty, I'm in, so everybody should be ready. So, item 1, consider approval of consent agenda.
Move to approve, sir.
Let's see, I heard Travis. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 1. We'll call a question.
I'm sorry, who was the first on that?
It was Travis. Travis and Cammie. And motion passes 7-0. Item 2, consideration of resolution adopting the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 budget for the Shawnee Airport Authority for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024. And Lindsay's back up.
This is just the companion item to our budget. This is the resolution for the Shawnee Airport Authority fiscal year 23-24 budget.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? If not, how about a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir. Darren, did I hear a second?
Yes.
Second.
Was it Travis?
No, it was Darren.
It was.
I'm sorry, it was
Darren made the
Daniel. Sorry,
motion.
you said Darren. Daniel. Second.
Daniel, okay. Very good.
Sorry.
I know I heard it down that way. So we have a motion and a second, and you're up.
A resolution approving and adopting the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget for Shawnee Airport Authority, Oklahoma for the period July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll call that question.
Did it prompt you to vote? Richter?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 3, consider bids, improve airport drainage.
Yes, they are.
Oh, careful there.
Yep, there's a lot down there.
There is a bunch down there. Thank you, ma'am.
It's lazy evening, right?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
That thing dipped up on the side. Valerie for a very minor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. As you can see before us, we have received a single bid in response to solicitation for bids for improving the airport drainage stormwater project. And staff is requesting that this item be deferred to the July 17th meeting to give staff and the engineering team a chance to review the bid that was submitted for sufficiency, quality, and generally making sure it's okay.
Fantastic.
Move to defer.
I'll second.
Okay, so we had Daniel and Travis. Motion to defer to a future meeting. Okay. We will call the question.
Just gonna give it to me.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 4 is new business.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. We are adjourned and we'll move to the Municipal Authority. Item 1 is consent agenda.
Just one moment, please.
Oh, that's right, we gotta get out of here. There we go. Just let me know when you're ready, Casey. No rush. Thank you, ma'am. All righty, so item 1 is consider approval of consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Travis.
Second.
And I think I heard Daniel down there. So we have a motion and a second to approve item 1. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 2, consideration of budget amendment to fiscal year 2022 to 2023 budget, Shawnee Municipal Authority Fund 501, to fund a final debt service payment. Your turn.
My turn. All right, so this amendment is to give budget authority for the final debt service payment for a 2013 promissory note. It was not previously added to the budget because the funds were already accounted for in a reserve account, but the fund still needs the budget authority to spend those funds. So the amount appropriation is $1,325,000 for principal, $35,775 for interest, and $875 for other fees.
Questions?
Oh, and I will
Yes,
also note that you have a change to the handout. It should be at your podium. The only thing that changed from what was in the agenda packet to what's in front of you now is that we did have a beginning budget. So there was budget there for other debt service payments. So on the original form that I filled out, I just didn't include that beginning. So that was the only thing that changed. So.
Okay. Any questions? How about a motion?
Move to approve item 2.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. I lost my spot on, so. There we go. So that was Darren and Mark. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 2. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 3, consideration of resolution adopting fiscal year 2023-2024 budget for the Shawnee Municipal Authority for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024. One more time.
One more time. So this is the resolution adopting the 23-24 budget for the Shawnee Municipal Authority, and no changes were made after the public hearing held on May 15th.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions? How about a motion?
Move to approve item 3.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Darren. And Daniel, and you got one more time.
A resolution approving and adopting the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget for Shawnee Municipal Authority, Oklahoma for the period July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have motion and a second for approval of item 3. We'll call the question. Did it work? Motion passes 7-0. Item 4 is new business.
No new business.
Item 5 is adjourned. Let's go home. Thank you very much for coming tonight.